Welcome back to Human Design Center. I'm glad that we share a common interest in human design, the science of differentiation, the art of living your life correctly, according to your unique design and genetic matrix that sustains it. You have a unique cosmic imprint, and you may start learning about your uniqueness by listening the gates of your chart. Human design is about the chance that we have to diminish the resistance of life, to attract what is correct for each of us, and for our own cross of incarnation. Today you are going to learn, or recap, as the case may be, about Hexagram 30, the clinging fire, feelings, freedom recognized as an illusion and limitation accepted as a fate. Hexagra 30 is part of first trimester of Alcyone, where we accomplish our purpose through mind, initiation, thinking, thoughts. Gate 30 corresponds to goddess KHALI, the dark goddess, the destroyer, the creator, the fierce one. Goddess of death and rebirth, death and destruction for those who deserve it. Destroyer of false devotions and false attachments. Zodiac sign, Aquarius. Gate 30 flows within the collective sensing circuitry, which is about past situations or ideas or events, past experience and sensing, about visual perception. It's about sharing from what we felt in the wave. Keyword, sharing. Center, solar plexus, which is about emotions, consciousness of spirit, emotional and social consciousness, passion, crisis, abundance of spirit, states, sensitivity, desire, feelings. It is the motor of our emotional nature, and it operates in a wave. It is also our third awareness system, but it does not determine our action now, in present time. We use it as a motor. The harmonic gate is number 41, decrease, contraction, being part of the projected channel 30 with 41, the channel of recognition, a design of focused energy, feelings. The opposite gate is number 29, the abysmal, perseverance, the gate of saying yes. Aminoacid, glutamine. Relevant organ, ventral ganglia, digestion. Tarot card associated, the star, major arcana, number 17. Gate 30, in first trimester, in KHALI, forms the channel with gate 41, located in the fourth trimester of Sirius mutation spirit, connecting to the archetype keepers of the wheel. This way, amino acid glutamine associated with gate 30 communicates with methionine of gate 41. It is relevant for the value and functioning of this gate to observe that amino acid glutamine is the same as for the gate 13, the listener, under the castle of the same goddess KHALI. It is useful to have in mind that these two gates share the same amino acid, both placed within the same energy of KHALI. Glutamine may be the reason to behave like a 13 and not like a 30th gate, especially for the first 4 lines of both gates. There is a certain risk of not self. Remember that the emotions of gate 30 forms the channel of recognition with gate 41. Desires and emotions are shared since they are on the collective sensing circuit. If you mistake gate 30 for 13, there is the pitfall of considering that desires must be secret, or you may consider yourself a listener, a collector of secrets under the incorrect pressure of the fuel of desires in gate 41. Only glutamine of gate 30 reaches the start codon in gate 41, not the glutamine of gate 13. So ask yourself, can the feelings, the emotional attachments of 30th gate, affects, through certain behavior, how your body uses glutamine? If your devotions are fake or obsessive, could this impact glutamine level? Remember that KHALI is the destroyer of false devotions and false attachments. The way you live or refine your emotions in relation to your desires or fantasies will impact your glutamine and also other amino acids, since glutamine is the most abundant amino acid in the body. I would like to know your opinions or about your own experience with this gate in the comments below, on how gate 30 might impact the level of glutamine in our body. Take into consideration that you might have gate 30 in an undefined center, in a defined center, or in a channel with 41st gate. Now, glutamine is our focus in this section. We have to understand the role and functions of glutamine in our body in order to find answers to the questions and dilemmas that I've just talked about. I study amino acids only in relation to human design gates. I'm not a specialist in biology. Whatever I tell you about amino acids in any gate represents my own knowledge and personal research, the final purpose being the understanding of human design gates and channels. So this information on amino acids is not supposed to be qualified as recommendation. Glutamine is the most abundant amino acid in your body. It plays many important roles in your health, including making proteins for muscle tissue, strengthening your intestines, supporting immune system cells. Your body does make glutamine, but you also get it from foods such as wheat, peanuts, corn, and milk. It's rare to have low levels of glutamine unless you are ill or injured. Almost any food containing protein will contain some glutamine, but amounts vary. The following would be the percentages of protein in 100 grams, made up of L-glutamine in each food in a decreasing order from highest rich in glutamine to the lowest. White rice, corn 16.2%, white rice 1%, tofu 9%, skim milk 8%, beef 4%, eggs 4%. Remember that although some plant sources, such as white rice and corn, have a large percent of protein made up of glutamine, they have fairly low protein contents overall. Glutamine supports the immune system. Glutamine is the main fuel source for your body's lymphocytes, white blood cells that fight infection and disease. But your blood's glutamine levels drop when you're sick or injured, reducing these immune cells' ability to defend your body. While there's conflicting evidence on whether it boosts immunity in healthy people, studies show it can improve recovery times and reduce complications when you're sick. Glutamine maintains gut health. It is said that glutamine helps strengthen your intestinal lining, protecting against damage and ensuring your body absorbs the nutrients it needs. Because of this, researchers are looking into whether glutamine supplements can help people with digestive disorders, such as Crohn's disease and irritable bowel syndrome, IBD. So far, study results are mixed, with some showing a small benefit and others showing none. So while getting enough glutamine is important to maintain normal gut health, it's not clear if supplemental glutamine can be helpful in cases of gut disorders. Glutamine may help muscle recovery. Glutamine is necessary to maintain muscle protein, which is why it's a popular sports supplement. There are many claims about its ability to speed muscle recovery and improve athletic performance. Some study results show that it reduces muscle fatigue and improves exercise recovery, but this has not been shown to translate into better athletic performance. Glutamine helps treat sickle cell disease. In sickle cell disease, your red blood cells become hard and sticky. They also change their shape and resemble a sickle. When that happens, blockages develop in your blood vessels, blocking the flow of blood and making you more susceptible to infection, anemia, and other serious complications. Glutamine supplements have been shown to help reduce red blood cell damage, keeping them from becoming sticky and misshapen. This helps blood to flow normally. Glutamine helps treat skin burns. Some research suggests that glutamine may help speed the healing of burns and reduce related infections. Does glutamine help in post-surgery recovery? Glutamine may reduce your risk of infection that can result from surgery, such as pneumonia. Some research shows it can help reduce the length of post-surgical hospital stays, but there isn't enough high-quality evidence yet for it to be routinely used after surgery. If you have any insights or answers to the questions formulated in the first part of this section, please share in the comments below. So, since we've located the gate on the mandala and on the body graph, and we have a general summary of the essential characteristics of gate 30, you also know the benefits of the amino acid associated with the behavior of this placement. You have the elements to keynote the message of this gate. If you have this gate active in your chart, take your time, compose the key phrase of this gate, and feel how it resonates. Leave a comment, share your insights and understandings. Now, let's have a look to the energy of Gate 30, the clinging fire, feelings. Freedom recognized as an illusion and limitation, accepted as a fate. Gate 30 in human design is a deeply emotional and karmic gate called the clinging fire in the I Ching. It sits in the solar plexus center, the emotional awareness center, and its main theme revolves around desire, emotional intensity, emotional hunger, and the experience of intense feelings, with the key note of emotional clarity over time. The core theme is about the intense desire to experience life deeply, but with an underlying emotional volatility. The clinging fire. This poetic name refers to how intense feelings and desires cling to experiences, much like fire clings to fuel. This imagery points to fire needing something to cling to, a metaphor for how our feelings and desires need something to attach themselves to. Fire, emotion, is not stable on its own. It consumes, it needs fuel, and it can burn uncontrollably if not respected. This reflects Gate 30's emotional intensity and yearning for meaningful experience. This gate burns with emotional intensity, often rooted in longing for love, connection, purpose, experiences. Gate 30 is the fuel for emotional experiences, especially those tied to desire, passion, and yearning. There's a yearning for something more, even if it's undefined. It wants more love, more depth, more excitement, more meaning. But this isn't just idle longing. It's the pressure to feel, to engage with life fully, even knowing it may lead to pain or disappointment. Think, I know this might hurt, but I want it anyway. Gate 30 holds on to desires, even if they're painful, because to feel deeply is better than to feel nothing at all. There's a craving for emotional highs, and sometimes the inevitable lows that follow. Freedom recognized as an illusion and limitation accepted as a fate. This sentence, from the I Ching hexagram associated with Gate 30, points to a cosmic maturity that develops through emotional experience. Let's see the first piece of the sentence. Freedom recognized as an illusion. In the emotional wave, you may chase freedom from longing, from pain, from circumstances. But Gate 30 reveals that our desires bind us, not free us. Even our freedom to choose is often shaped by karmic patterns, past conditioning, or soul contracts. The illusion is that we can be free from wanting or feeling, but that's not how Gate 30 works. The second part of the sentence, limitation accepted as a fate. This is the wisdom part. Gate 30 learns over time that desire has a structure, and feelings have their own timing and limits. Instead of fighting limitation, emotional cycles, outcomes you can't control, this gate accepts the container. Like fire needs a hearth or chimney, our feelings need form. Limitation becomes the sacred vessel that gives emotional experience its meaning. So, we need to remember, the theme is meaning, desire, longing for meaningful emotional experiences, acceptance. The spiritual lesson is to let go of control and embrace emotional limitations as a path to growth. Karma. Gate 30 often plays out karmic desires. You're not always in control of what you're drawn toward. When expressed clearly, Gate 30 allows a person to ride the emotional wave with grace, honor their feelings, and use desire as fuel for transformation rather than destruction. You embody wisdom. When you live Gate 30 in a healthy way, this is when you honor your feelings without letting them control you. You recognize that wanting something deeply doesn't guarantee it will manifest, but that doesn't mean it's wrong to want. You accept limitation not as punishment, but as part of being human. The low vibration of this gate is about freedom as an illusion, the realization that we're not free from the mechanics of life. We're bound by our design, our emotions, the consequences of our choices. Limitation as fate, acceptance that life comes with constraints, emotional cycles, timing, consequence. Gate 30's wisdom comes from learning to accept that not everything can be had just because we want it. This is why the key phrase for Gate 30 is often quoted as freedom recognized as an illusion and limitation accepted as a fate. It's not defeatist, it's mature. It's a deep acceptance of the human experience, emotional highs and lows, passions unfulfilled, dreams pursued despite risk, and still choosing to engage. When distorted, this 30th gate can lead to emotional burnout, attachment to drama, confusing desire with destiny, becoming enslaved by passion or craving. If you have this gate in your chart, it is either in a defined or undefined solar plexus. In a defined solar plexus, there's a consistent experience of desire and emotional intensity. The wave is always there, driving that hunger for deep emotional moments. In an open solar plexus, this gate can cause you to feel emotionally overwhelmed or drawn to emotionally intense people or situations. Gate 30 connects to Gate 41 via Channel 4130, the channel of recognition, the starting point of the human design experiential way. Gate 41 is about fantasy and the spark of desire. Gate 30 gives that desire emotional depth and urgency. This is how our human experiential way starts, in 41st gate, in methionine, in a pressure center that gives the fuel of 41 to connect and to reach the emotional potential of Gate 30. If you have Gate 30 in your chart, you learn in time that we are not here to escape our emotions or desires, but to feel them fully, within the limits of time, form, and fate. Through this, we find emotional maturity and soul evolution. Let's hear what Ra Uru Hu said in Line Companion. Everything about the abstract process is about its experiential nature. Because the abstract process will never experience awareness, by the time that the rest of the circuitry that is going out of the emotional system has gained the capacity for spiritual awareness, by the time the change comes, this is a process that will be eliminated. The abstract process is a purely human process. It is our evolutionary process, our experiential process, and the 30th hexagram, in that case, represents something unusual. It represents the potential to feel and to long for an experience. Without this potential, we would not have our history. We would not have had all the crisis and change that this whole stream of energy has brought. So, the 30th hexagram is the beginning of Aquarius. The 30th hexagram is something special to us. This is a direction that we are moving towards. When the spring equinox is in Aquarius, it will be in the 6th line of the 30th hexagram, and it will be the beginning of this process of the Aquarian age. So the 30th hexagram has a lot of value to us. The clinging fire is the gate of feeling. Its potential is the awareness to recognize a feeling or not. It is the energy to generate a feeling or not. Don't be misled by this awareness terminology. It is an energy to feel or not, and its potential is hunger or thirst recognition. Everything about the experiential stream is about hunger in the beginning, the 41st hexagram, the initiator codon, and being full at the end, the 35th hexagram, progress. The 30th hexagram is the capacity to recognize the feeling to eat or drink. We talked about the need for humanity to be able to satisfy the demand of hunger, and you see that the primary human experience is the recognition of hunger and the energy to go and pursue that hunger until one has found food and one can eat. Just as food is a fundamental drive for that stream, sexuality is a fundamental drive of this stream. They are all locked up together in this process. The best description I know of the Aquarian age and the nature of this gate is above the lines. Freedom recognized as an illusion and limitation accepted as fate. This is the nature of what we are moving towards, the illusion of freedom. Freedom does not exist. This is the recognition that we all fit into a pattern, and in that, we all have our place, and in that, limitation is a grace. It is not a punishment. This is the nature of what we are moving toward. The emotional quality of this gate is driving us towards this. It is an extraordinary thing to recognize that the deepest force in the emotional motor in this stream, what it is really looking for, is to get out of the experiential business and to be satisfied with the pattern that gives value to the nature of what it is to be. End of quote. Walking through the 6 lines of the Gate 30, it's a process that will bring clarity to you in relation to nuances of the content and expression of the 30th gate. At the end, we will touch upon the crosses of incarnation, where Gate 30 plays its role and become part of the purpose. Let's see the 6 stages of development of this energy and possible dualism in its manifestation. Gate 30, line 1, composure. Balance in the face of disorder. Now we zoom into line 1, which is always the foundation, like the roots of the energy. This line sits at the foundation of Gate 30, the clinging fire, where emotional intensity and longing for experience live. Line 1 always seeks stability and understanding, and in Gate 30, that need is directed toward navigating emotional desire with calm and steadiness. This line speaks to how the energy of desire and emotional intensity is grounded. It sets the tone for how Gate 30 begins to express itself in the world. The first key to unlock is composure. This is the capacity to stay centered emotionally, even when your inner world is intense or chaotic. Gate 30 carries heat, a longing, a fire. But line 1 says, you can contain the fire. You're learning how to hold your emotional intensity with calmness, not repression, but inner poise. Imagine a candle flame in a dark room, bright, focused, not wild. That's composure. The core theme is balance in the face of disorder. This refers to holding steady when emotions feel overwhelming, yours or others. Gate 30 draws you toward emotionally charged experiences, love, heartbreak, risk, art, passion. But line 1's wisdom is to not be thrown off center by the emotional wave. This line has the potential to be an emotional anchor, especially when others are spiraling. So, this line represents the capacity to stay emotionally grounded even when feelings are intense or chaotic. A deep inner need for emotional security, especially before taking emotional risks. A desire to understand how to navigate desire safely without getting swept away. It is the calm in the storm, or at least the search for that calm. If you don't find your grounding, the emotional desires of Gate 30 can pull you into emotional chaos, lead to anxiety or burnout from overstimulation, make you reactive instead of responsive, create a fear of desire itself because it feels like too much to handle. When balanced, line 1 of Gate 30 has a healthy expression. You live it in such a way that it brings stability to desire. You can want deeply, but you're not desperate. It offers emotional reliability in relationships and teams. It holds space for emotional processing with maturity and grace. It serves as a calm firekeeper in emotionally intense situations. This line teaches you that true freedom comes not from avoiding emotion, but from being present with it without losing your center. If this line is in your chart, you might appreciate some integration tips. Practice emotional grounding techniques, breathwork, journaling, water, stillness. Embrace desire without rushing into it. Give your feelings space to unfold. Notice what disorder triggers you and where you can return to inner balance. See yourself as a container for intensity, not a victim of it. Now, let's look at how Gate 30.1 plays out in different chart placements, such as conscious, unconscious, or in a defined channel. 1. Conscious line of Gate 30 is on the personality or black side of your chart. When Gate 30.1 is conscious, you're aware of your need for emotional composure. You may see yourself as someone who prefers emotional stability and is cautious about emotionally charged situations. You might experience a careful approach to emotionally intense experiences, a strong desire to understand and process emotions before acting, awareness of how emotionally chaotic environments disrupt your inner balance. You recognize your strengths whenever you serve as an anchor for others during emotional waves, or when you can offer insight and structure in times of uncertainty or chaos. If you bring emotional wisdom through observation and steadiness. When the conscious energy of this line is distorted, you might experience a tendency to overthink emotional desires, delaying experience out of fear of instability, may avoid emotional risk altogether, missing out on depth and passion. 2. Unconscious line of Gate 30 is on your design or red side of your chart. When Gate 30.1 is unconscious, its influence is somatic. Others may feel your composure, even if you don't recognize it in yourself. You may not see yourself as emotionally grounded, but your aura carries it. You might experience others relying on you during emotional storms, even if you don't know why. A default emotional steadiness that you take for granted. Confusion when people see you as calm or composed, even if you feel emotionally intense inside. Be aware of your strengths, such as you embody composure. It radiates from you without effort. You can regulate emotional environments through your presence alone. You help stabilize emotional situations without needing to talk about it. The low vibration of your behavior in this unconscious line is about at least 2 different aspects. You may suppress your own emotions unconsciously to preserve the peace. You might not trust your ability to handle emotionally intense experiences because you don't consciously recognize your strength. 3. When Gate 30.1 is part of the defined channel 4130, it forms the channel of recognition, an emotional wave that seeks meaningful experience. This channel amplifies emotional desire and adds creative tension. With Gate 30.1 as part of this channel, your emotional intensity becomes consistent and amplified, but line 1 adds grounding. There's a strong internal need to feel emotionally ready and safe before initiating anything. You likely slow the wave down, needing to feel right before entering a new emotional cycle. You might experience a push-pull between emotional pressure, Gate 41, and your need for composure, Gate 30.1. Feeling ready to begin, but still needing to wait for emotional clarity. Holding emotional authority in relationships. People may rely on your stabilizing presence to begin emotional journeys together. Enjoy the gifts of this channel when you have it in your chart. You are the guardian of emotional pacing, not rushing into intensity without preparation. You bring a mature foundational energy to emotionally charged creative or romantic endeavors. You know how to feel deeply while staying rooted. In any version of this line, conscious or not, in a channel or not, Gate 30.1 is the emotional root system. It holds the passion of desire without letting it burn the house down. It teaches us that even in the fire of longing, we can cultivate stillness, and in that stillness, we find clarity, timing, and depth. Exaltation and detriment. Another layer for diving. Sun exalted. The maximization of limitation in all cases. Stability through feelings, no matter what the situation. When the sun is exalted here, this adds extra dignity, power, and brightness to the line's energy, and it gives it a special elevated expression of its potential. This line is all about finding balance and steadiness in the realm of emotion and desire, and when the sun is exalted, this ability is amplified and idealized. What does sun exalted mean? When a planet is exalted, it expresses its best qualities. In this case, the sun represents identity, life force, personality, vitality. In exaltation, it radiates clearly, giving this line a centered and consistent expression. In Gate 30.1, the sun brings emotional resilience, strength of heart, and a kind of unwavering inner fire, even when things are chaotic outside. Located in the solar plexus center, the center of emotions, desire, passion, and emotional waves. It's about longing for experience and the emotional intensity that clings to desire. The lesson of this gate is learning to accept limitation and to live emotionally without guarantee of fulfillment. Line 1, composure. The first line always represents a foundation, a base, or anchor. Here, it's about developing a kind of emotional grounding. Even in the midst of emotional highs and lows, you can find balance and composure. You may feel life demands patience and endurance through emotionally intense experiences. Sun exalted in 30.1 is the maximization of limitation in all cases, and by breaking it down, we get some messages. Maximization of limitation. As a paradox, this means that even in situations where things are restricted, you are able to maximize your emotional stability and presence. You don't resist limitation, you embrace it, and through that, become emotionally consistent. Stability through feelings, no matter what the situation. You become a pillar in emotionally turbulent environments. This is someone who can walk into chaos and not lose their center, or experience deep longing, grief, passion, yet still remain steady. Accept that desires may never be fulfilled and still remain emotionally whole. If you have Gate 30.1 with the sun exalted, you likely embody emotional maturity. You may not always feel calm, but you know how to stay centered in your emotional wave. A stabilizing presence. People come to you in crisis because your energy holds steady. Respect for timing. You know things happen in their own time, and not all desires are meant to come true. Embracing of limits. You thrive within emotional boundaries instead of being destroyed by them. High expression of this placement is about resilient heart. No matter how intense the emotional storm, you hold your core. You shine in emotionally challenging roles, counseling, healing, leadership in crisis. You accept the bittersweet beauty of longing and don't need resolution to be at peace. If misaligned, the low vibration comes out in different aspects, such as you may internalize emotional chaos, feeling you must be stoic and suppress emotion. You might feel trapped in emotional limitation, growing resentful or detached. Or you could cling too tightly to composure, refusing to allow vulnerability. In a few words, remember that Gate 30.1 with sun exalted is the steady flame, not the wildfire of passion, but the hearth fire that warms and lasts. It teaches us that true emotional power doesn't come from expression or release, but from the discipline to stay grounded in the fire of desire. Jupiter in detriment. The ability to maintain composure, but at the expense of progress. Balance through feelings, but unable to let go of them. This is a powerful and nuanced placement to unpack. As a first layer, Gate 30 deals with the emotional fuel for experience, yet there's always a karmic tension. The longing may never be fulfilled in the way we want. Then line 1 is composure, and it wants foundation and security. In Gate 30.1, this expresses as a deep desire for emotional stability, especially in the face of intense or overwhelming feelings. It's the line that seeks to hold its center, no matter how wild the emotional wave becomes. Now, we add the layer of Jupiter in detriment on all of these. What does it mean? Jupiter represents expansion, abundance, growth, morality, and societal structure. When in detriment, its qualities are weakened, distorted, or turned inward. Instead of expansion, we may see contraction, over-containment, or difficulty letting go. So Jupiter in detriment here reflects a struggle with emotional expansion. The person may maintain stability, but be stuck emotionally, unable to evolve or move forward. The first part of the theme is the ability to maintain composure. This still reflects emotional grounding. Even with Jupiter in detriment, the person holds steady emotionally. They may come across as calm, balanced, and measured even in emotional crisis or desire. The second part of the theme, but at the expense of progress. Here's the key cost. While you appear calm, you may stay stuck in emotional loops. The desire is strong, but you're reluctant to move, risk, or release. The emotional state becomes a holding pattern rather than fuel for transformation. You may ruminate or cling to a feeling long after it has passed its usefulness. You might replay an emotional scenario over and over, unable to evolve through it. You crave safety and emotion and avoid the risk of change that true emotional expression may demand. The third piece of the theme, balance through feelings but unable to let go of them. This means that you feel and you regulate, but you don't release. Emotional composure becomes emotional holding. There's a subtle grip on the past, holding on to the feeling even after it has served its purpose. This can lead to a person who can speak calmly about an event 10 years ago, but still feels just as emotionally bound to it. An outward appearance of grace and serenity, but inward cycles of longing, nostalgia, or regret. Emotional wisdom that cannot integrate, because the emotion never fully clears. The high expression of this placement is about your gifts, such as deep emotional loyalty. You stick with what you care about and hold space like no one else. You can be a rock of emotional containment. Others may lean on your composure. You bring depth and gravity to emotional spaces. You take emotions seriously. If processed well, your experiences become emotional archives of wisdom. When you do not take advantage of your gifts, when you are misaligned, you express the low vibration of this placement in different versions or aspects of your life, such as emotional stagnation, stuck in past feelings, unable to move forward or evolve. Suppressed expression, holding in emotional truths to preserve composure. Resistance to letting go, which can block new experiences and healing. Progress feels scary, so you anchor in old emotional patterns as a form of safety. In relationships, you may stay emotionally connected to someone long after the connection has ended. You hold the emotional imprint tightly. In expressing creativity, your best work may come from lingering feelings, but unless processed, it can feel repetitive or heavy. When you take care of your personal growth, you long for change, but may sabotage it by clinging to old feelings. There's a fear that releasing them would unravel you. As for your social life, others may see you as emotionally grounded or even stoic, but inside, you might feel like a slow-burning fire that never goes out. A few words, conclusion, to reflect upon. Jupiter in detriment in gate 31 teaches us that emotional composure is not always freedom. Sometimes, true growth lies not in holding on, but in trusting the fire enough to let it burn clean. You're here to develop a strong emotional foundation, but to learn over time that real strength includes the courage to release. For this line, we also have the opinion of Ra Uru Hu. I quote, "It begins with the foundation in the first line, which is composure. Hardly what you would imagine. The nature of feeling is to go into the process, delve into the process. This is the nature of introspection in the first line. Balance in the face of disorder. Sun exalted, the maximization of limitation in all cases. Jupiter in detriment, the ability to maintain composure, but at the expense of progress. This gate burns with feelings. This is a gate of yearning and longing. In that feeling comes an intensity. This is where desire is. It is driven by desire. The key to that is the composure. Most people think of this gate as being the burning gate. One of the keys is the recognition of composure, the rising of the intensity of the feeling and waiting for the opportunity to be able to actualize. Stability through feelings, no matter what the situation. When you move from the 30th to the 36th gate, you are going to the gate of inexperience that demands the experience. But the 30th gate is living out the feeling in the wave, up and down in that wave of feelings. These are people that carry what we call feelings. Balanced through feelings, but unable to let go of them. This is one of the keys to understanding the nature of the 30th hexagram. This is obsession. It is all about obsession. Even if one can be composed, the obsession is there, and the longer the intensity develops in the 30th gate without the capacity to fulfill that, the deeper the obsession becomes. This is a deep hunger that lies inside of the human being. That hunger longs to be fulfilled. The nature of this gate is to have composure in spite of obsession. The experience can be in the feeling itself without any consummation. Gate 30, line 2, pragmatism. The balance between extremes. Gate 30, recap. The gate of feelings, clinging fire, is in solar plexus, emotional awareness center, with the theme of desire, emotional intensity, craving for meaningful experience. The core question would be, what do I yearn for? And can I handle the emotional ride that comes with it? Gate 30 is not about surface level feelings. It's about those deep, smoldering longings that can shape the course of your life. Line 2 is about pragmatism and the balance between extremes. Line 2s in human design are often called the natural or the hermit. They carry a kind of effortless instinct or giftedness. When you combine this with Gate 30's intense emotional energy, Line 2 brings a surprising twist, practical emotional wisdom. This line brings a natural push-pull between emotional desire and realism, a longing for experience, yet with an instinct for balance. Now, the balance between extremes. This line holds the key to managing emotional polarities, desire versus detachment, passion versus restraint, highs versus lows. Gate 30 tends to lean into emotional extremes, deep love, deep heartbreak, deep longing. Line 2 offers a kind of emotional moderation, not repression, but discernment. It seeks the middle path, not out of fear, but out of understanding the consequences of swinging too far in either direction. This example might be relevant for you. Instead of chasing an intense relationship just for the thrill, this line might ask, is this sustainable? Can this desire lead to real growth? Or will it just burn me out? What do we understand from the keyword pragmatism? This word here is powerful. Line 2 doesn't reject emotion. It just brings realism into the picture. It's the ability to say, yes, I want this, but what's the cost? What's the timing? What's real? While Gate 30 can get caught in the dream of emotional fulfillment, Line 2 applies discernment and practical wisdom to desire. You might feel the fire of longing, but you also know when to wait, when to act, and when to let go. If this line is off balance or overwhelmed, it might suppress desire altogether, fearing the emotional consequences. Or swing between extremes, from total indulgence to complete emotional withdrawal. May feel like it's missing out on the intensity others chase. Might avoid risks out of a fear of emotional unpredictability. When integrated and aligned, this line becomes a master of emotional pacing, knowing when to hold back and when to leap. It leads others by example, showing how to stay grounded in the fire of life. navigates relationships and desires with maturity, grace, and emotional clarity. Become someone others rely on for stable emotional presence, especially when things get chaotic. Spiritual wisdom of line 2 comes with the understanding of the fact that desire is not the enemy. Imbalance is. Emotional experience becomes evolution when held with clarity and care. If you have this line, trust your natural sense of when to move toward desire and when to pause. You may feel different than others, less dramatic, more grounded, and that's a gift. Your emotional wisdom often comes without effort, but it needs space and solitude to integrate. Embrace the fact that you're wired to be emotionally sustainable, not emotionally extreme. Gate 30.2 carries a sensitive realism, feeling deeply but not falling into fantasy, a need to find middle ground, not too fast, not too cautious, just right. The potential to serve as a grounded emotional guide if properly recognized and supported. Now, let's look at how Gate 30.2 plays out in different chart placements, such as conscious, unconscious, or in a defined channel. 1. Conscious second line of Gate 30 is on the personality or black side of your chart. When Gate 30.2 is conscious, you're aware of this dynamic in yourself, how you manage desire, and the emotional push for experiences. You might experience an ability to temper emotional intensity with common sense, awareness of your own tendency to seek emotional middle ground, not suppressing desire, but not acting on impulse either. A drive to live meaningfully without going to extremes. You are aware of your strengths, like, for example, you become a model of emotional maturity, feeling passion and staying grounded. You can give great advice to others who are struggling with emotional roller coasters. You know how to say, not now, but maybe later. That's powerful. Pay attention to the challenges of the mind or challenging unhealthy fears. You might overanalyze desire, hesitating out of fear of going too far. You could resist deep experiences out of fear of emotional intensity, sacrificing depth for safety. 2. Unconscious second line of Gate 30 is on the design or red side. When Gate 30.2 is unconscious, this pattern is in the body, not the mind. You may not recognize how naturally pragmatic or emotionally balancing you are, but others will feel it from you. You might experience a subtle emotional restraint or balance others notice, even if you don't see it. People may come to you for emotional support or grounding without you knowing why. A tendency to avoid extremes without fully understanding the inner mechanism. You have to recognize and take advantage of your strengths. Your energy calms emotional environments. You may act like an emotional stabilizer. Embodied wisdom. You intuitively sense when something feels off, even if you can't explain it. There might be some pitfalls to deal with on this unconscious side, such as others may project emotional authority on you that you don't relate to consciously. You might unknowingly hold back from full emotional experiences, sensing danger in going too far, but not knowing where that sense comes from. 3. In your chart, Gate 30.2 can be part of a defined channel, 4130, channel of recognition. Gate 30 is the emotional intensity. Gate 41 is the emotional fuel or desire to begin experiences. Together, this channel creates a defined emotional wave, and Gate 30.2 becomes part of a full experiential emotional cycle. What changes? Now your desire has emotional momentum behind it. There's no turning back once the wave starts. The second line here plays a balancing role in a wave of potential emotional extremes. You may feel a tension between initiating desire, Gate 41, and holding it back to maintain equilibrium. You might experience a pattern of starting emotionally intense experiences, but then pausing to reevaluate or ground yourself. Being driven toward emotional depth, but also needing space or simplicity to not get overwhelmed. Others might expect you to be all in emotionally, but your pragmatism wants a middle path. When aligned, you ride your emotional wave with grace, knowing when to lean in and when to pause. You teach others how to burn brightly without burning out. As a final reflection, Gate 30.2 is the grounded dreamer. You feel deeply, want passionately, but there's a natural wisdom that says, only if it's real, only if it's worth it. You're not here to be reckless with your emotional energy. You're here to cultivate meaningful experiences and teach others how to burn with purpose, not just passion. Sun exalted, the productive application of energy without wastage, not wasting energy on feelings. This placement brings clarity, dignity, and brightness to how this line operates. Gate 30, we know that is about longing, emotional intensity, and the deep inner urge for experience. It brings emotional fuel, but not always fulfillment. There's a karmic flavor to its hunger. We often desire something without a guarantee we'll get it. Adding the layer of line 2, we bring pragmatism to this inner urge for experience, getting to pragmatic longing and emotional intensity. Also, second lines, the natural, the hermit, are naturally talented and radiate an effortless quality, but often need to be called out or recognized by others to engage fully. There's a shyness or retreat, especially if the person isn't feeling seen or safe. With Gate 30, this can show up as feeling a lot internally, but being careful or reserved about showing it. We go more specific, adding the line theme with Sun exalted, the productive application of energy without wastage, not wasting energy on feelings. So gathering all keywords and themes together for this placement, we have a natural person, a hermit, which is projected upon, with this pragmatic inner urge for experience, pragmatic emotional intensity, radiating an effortless quality in doing that. Then they tend to retreat, or two by shy, they feel a lot internally, but they are careful or reserved. With Sun exalted, these persons do not waste their energy without a purpose. They use their energy in a productive manner. They do not waste their energy on feelings, so they don't become overwhelmed by unnecessary drama. So, Sun exalted in line 2, pure pragmatism and emotional energy. The first theme, the productive application of energy without wastage. This is about refining emotional energy. You know how to feel deeply, but not get overwhelmed or distracted by unnecessary emotional drama. There's a gift here, using emotion as fuel, not as friction. The second part of the theme, not wasting energy on feelings. That doesn't mean you don't have feelings, but you don't indulge them for the sake of it. You learn to filter what's emotionally useful versus what's draining. There's a strong theme of emotional efficiency. You're here to move through feelings with intention. What this might look like in a chart or person, if you have Gate 30.2 with the Sun exalted, well, you may have strong emotional awareness, but keep it quiet or internal. Be careful not to get emotionally entangled, preferring to use emotion to fuel meaningful experiences. Avoid unnecessary drama. You may walk away rather than escalate. Be naturally wise about which feelings are worth engaging and which are distractions. This is someone who can say, I feel this without being consumed by it. Who can sense when emotions are useful and when they're just noise. That can use emotional energy practically, like focusing desire into a creative project, not into overthinking or fantasy. High expression of this placement is about being emotionally wise. You can feel deeply without losing clarity. Discerning. You don't indulge in unnecessary drama or emotional waste. Being fuel efficient. You use your emotional energy with precision, like a finely tuned engine. Using emotion as power, you can channel longing or passion into productive, creative, or experiential output. Their gift is about clean emotional boundaries and focused azak desire. The distorted energy of this placement is about detached or emotionally avoidant, You might be so focused on not wasting emotional energy that you shut down vulnerability. Unreachable. Others may feel you're hard to emotionally connect with unless they call you out. Over-controlled. You might overmanage emotions to avoid feeling chaotic, but this can suppress your depth. To summarize, remember that gate 30.2 with the sun exalted is like a focused flame, not a wildfire, but a controlled burn, fueling exactly what matters, lighting only what serves your growth. You're here to remind us that feelings are fuel, not the destination. Mars in detriment. Over-aggressiveness that chafes against limitations. Feelings which demand energy. This is a rich and fiery combination, full of tension, drive, and emotional heat. Gate 30, the clinging fire, solar plexus center, is the emotional fire that fuels our hunger for meaningful experiences. It's about karmic desire, wanting something deeply, even if there's no guarantee of getting it. This gate is always trying to hold on to an emotional flame, which can feel unstable, risky, or even painful if not channeled well. Line 2, pragmatism, as any second line represents the natural, someone who has an innate gift or way of being that doesn't try to prove itself. It prefers not to be disturbed unless it's called out by others. In Gate 30.2, this gift is emotional efficiency, knowing what feelings are worth investing in and not wasting emotional energy. Adding all keywords and themes, it's like this. I am a natural hermit that wants something deeply, even if there's no guarantee of getting it. I have karmic desires. I experience emotions in a pragmatic manner. I do not want to prove myself, and I do not want to be disturbed, and I am emotionally efficient, not only pragmatic, meaning that I know what feelings are worth investing in. I do not waste my emotional energy. But when Mars is in detriment, my calm center can get ignited and disrupted, as it's obvious from the theme, over-aggressiveness that chafes against limitations, feelings which demand energy. Unpacking this theme in pieces, it will be clear how Mars disrupt and influence my natural emotional pragmatism. 1. Over-aggressiveness that chafes against limitations. Mars is the planet of raw energy, assertion, drive, and even aggression. When in detriment, Mars is not functioning optimally. It becomes too reactive, impatient, or misdirected. So instead of healthy action, there's pushing too hard, often against something that can't or shouldn't be changed. In the emotional context of Gate 30, this shows up as intense frustration with emotional limits, like, why can't I make this feeling go away? Why can't I make this happen now? Why do I feel stuck with this desire? This placement chafes at emotional rules, timelines, or boundaries. The person wants to burn through the limitation, but often ends up burning themselves instead. The second part of this theme, feelings which demand energy. This is key. These emotions won't sit quietly, they demand action. It can feel like the heart is on fire and you have to do something about it. But because it's Mars in detriment, the action is often not wise, not timed well, or too forceful for the situation. This is the kind of energy that texts someone impulsively during an emotional high, then regrets it, starts a bold new project based on passion and runs out of steam, reacts emotionally to limitations, and ends up creating more tension instead of resolution. How this might feel in real life. If you have Gate 30.2 with Mars in detriment, well, you may have huge emotional desires that feel like they must be expressed. Get restless or agitated when you can't move on a feeling. Feel like you're trapped in longing, and the only way out is to do something, even if that action isn't productive. Struggle with emotional patience. You want emotional fulfillment now, and that urgency can be intense. When aligned or conscious, this placement is about emotional fire starter. You ignite emotional transformation, even if it's messy. Courageous feeler. You don't back down from intense feelings. You confront them, wrestle with them. Catalyst. Your emotional intensity can motivate others, move stagnant situations, or shake people out of complacency. Channeling through the body. If you work with the emotional energy, e.g., through movement, dance, art, expression, it becomes powerful fuel. The gift of powerful emotional drive that can ignite transformation. When unconscious or misaligned, there are some risks or pitfalls to take into consideration. Emotional burnout, pushing through every emotional wave, trying to force resolution. Impulsiveness, acting before the feeling settles, leading to regret or instability. Frustration with limits, feeling trapped or repressed by emotional delays, timing, or unfulfilled desires. Reactivity, lashing out or breaking down when emotional energy feels blocked. Just to summarize, Gate 30.2 with Mars in detriment is like a volcano under pressure. The energy is real, the heat is alive, and the desire is relentless. Your growth lies in learning to work with the fire, not rage against the container. With time and awareness, you learn that some feelings burn brighter when you stop trying to escape them, and instead, let them teach you how to hold desire without being consumed by it. Ra-Uru-Hu says that, when we get to this second line of projection and consider the mirror at the other side in the 18.2, where you have terminal disease, here the feelings are projected outwards in the almost desperate need not to simply feel it, but do it. This is one of the keys in this line, the balance between extremes. Sun exalted, the productive application of energy without wastage. These people are not going to release their feelings when there is nothing they can do with them. They release them the moment they can do something. Everything they do suddenly gets imbued with this power of feeling. No wastage means they do not get lost in all kinds of feelings. Mars in detriment. Over-aggressiveness that chafes against limitations. The moment that they cannot get their feelings out, they become aggressive because it is very frustrating for them that they can't get it out. The Book of Letters says, not wasting energy on feelings. They don't waste energy on feelings. They are pragmatic. They want to waste the energy on the experience, not on the feeling. The feeling for them is, yes, yes, but what is the experience? Their feelings are always waiting for the opportunity of experience. Feelings which demand energy. They are demanding the opportunity to release the feelings, and if they can't, they build up a lot of tension. This line in relationships can be very explosive, particularly if they are with somebody who suddenly turns on their emotional system. The 30.2, in an undefined emotional system, and someone comes along and pumps up their emotional system. This can be a powerful thing. There is a great deal of emotional energy that is locked up in here, waiting for the opportunity to burst out, with predictable results in terms of what happens with other people. It often is simply a feeling overload. I knew someone like that who dropped by my house every time I made some music. He immediately made me so emotional that I had to stop. The moment that he had an outlet for this emotional feeling, he was just pouring them out. It would not matter if it was a dead dog. He could have his opportunity to release his energy crying, laughing, and if you are open to that, you take that in. This is uncomfortable because it carries this feeling intensity. These people are great for sannyasana therapies. End of quote. Gate 30, line 3, resignation. The acceptance of what is. The theme of Gate 30 is about desire, emotional intensity, craving for deep and meaningful experience. Its role is to push us toward emotional transformation through longing and experience. Gate 30 burns with emotional desire. It's about wanting something so deeply that it becomes part of your destiny. But each line in this gate shows a different relationship to that desire. Line 3, resignation, the acceptance of what is. This line is powerful, humbling, and deeply human. The key word, resignation, is about not giving up, but letting go. This word often gets a bad reputation. In the context of Gate 30.3, resignation isn't defeat. It's a form of emotional surrender. It's the realization that not everything we desire will come to pass, and that's okay. Instead of fighting reality or trying to control outcomes, Line 3 learns to accept life as it is, even when it doesn't match the dream. This is a line that says, I wanted it, I tried, and now I let it be. The essence of this line is about surrendering to the nature of desire, realizing that not all desires will be fulfilled, and finding peace in that truth. It's not defeatist. It's a mature emotional clarity that comes through experience. There's a melancholy grace here, the ability to feel deeply while accepting the limits of control. The acceptance of what is translated as the emotional maturity of surrender. This is the heart of this line, emotional acceptance. Not bypassing or numbing, but feeling fully, then releasing attachment. It understands that desire is only one part of the journey, and life has its own timing, its own fate. It often comes after disappointment, after heartbreak, after the wave has crashed, and what's left is truth. This is a deep emotional lesson of surrender without bitterness. To understand this line, don't forget to consider the vibe of a third line. Trial and error plus adaptation. Line 3s in human design are known for experimenting, failing forward, learning through lived experience. So, Line 3 in Gate 30 brings experiential wisdom into the emotional realm. You go after what you want, even when it might not work. You get emotionally invested, and sometimes it doesn't pan out. And through that, you learn how to let go without losing yourself. That's resilience. If out of alignment, this line might become cynical or emotionally numb, give up too early, or stop desiring altogether. Avoid emotional risks, because what's the point? Stay stuck in sadness or regret over unmet desires. When embodied with awareness, this line becomes deeply emotionally wise and accepting, able to love fully without needing to possess. A teacher of emotional detachment, not coldness, but freedom. At peace with the fact that not all desires must be fulfilled to feel whole. You'll get the spiritual message of this line with time, as desire is the spark, but acceptance is the peace. Resignation is not a loss, it's the grace of letting go. If this is in your chart, you're designed to feel deeply, go for what you want, and learn through emotional experience. You might carry emotional scars, but they become wisdom. There's incredible strength in your ability to let go with grace. You're not here to force life, you're here to dance with it, even when it doesn't move the way you want. Now, let's look at how Gate 30.3 plays out in different chart placements, such as conscious, unconscious, or in a defined channel. 1. When Gate 30.3 is conscious, on the black side, the personality of your chart. This means you're aware of this energy. It's something you can observe in your own emotional processing and how you relate to life and desire. You might experience a lived wisdom around letting go of outcomes, even when you deeply care. The ability to ride emotional waves with a kind of quiet detachment, not because you don't feel, but because you've learned that not everything works out. A desire to experience life fully, but without clinging or entitlement. You might be aware of your gifts. You offer emotional grounding to others, showing that it's okay to not get what we want and to still be whole. You may hold space for grief or disappointment and transmute it into compassion. You teach through example, feel fully, release gracefully. You have to pay attention to the challenges of this conscious placement, such as you may feel emotionally flat at times, a resignation that slides into apathy or emotional numbness. Others might misread you as detached or disinterested when you're actually deeply feeling, just not reactive. 2. When gate 30.3 is unconscious, meaning it's on the red side, the design part of your chart. This means it's in your body, operating beneath the surface. Others may recognize this quality in you before you do. You might experience a quiet emotional pattern of letting go or stepping back from desire, often without fully knowing why. A life rhythm that seems to attract and release experiences, sometimes with a strange calm. A tendency to emotionally detach when outcomes don't go as planned, but without conscious processing. Stay aligned and use your gifts according to your strategy and authority. Your energy helps others come to emotional acceptance without needing to fix things. You may carry resonant emotional wisdom that is felt, even if not spoken. You support emotional transitions, endings, breakups, closures, with quiet strength. When you are not aligned, it might be about suppressed disappointment or unprocessed grief. Can fall into patterns of resignation too early, giving up on desires that still matter. 3. When gate 30.3 is part of a defined channel like 4130, channel of recognition. This is a powerful shift. When gate 30 connects with gate 41, the fuel to begin new emotional experiences, the line is now part of a full emotional circuit. What changes? Now your resignation isn't passive, it's part of an emotional process where you desire something, go after it, and then let go with grace, whether or not it works out. You may have a pattern of initiating emotionally charged experiences and concluding them with wisdom, even if the desire remains unmet. There's emotional artistry here, the ability to live the story and exit the stage with grace. You might experience life as a series of emotional vignettes, each desire rising, unfolding, and dissolving. A creative or relational pull toward things that are beautiful but temporary. An inner knowing that not all desires are meant to be fulfilled, but they're still meaningful. Gate 30.3 is the romantic realist. It says, I want this with all my heart, and I can let it go if it's not meant for me. There's beauty in that kind of emotional strength, not the kind that fights or conquers, but the kind that can hold space for impermanence and still love fully. Pluto exalted, the awareness and manifestation of the law of regeneration, the laws of karma, reincarnation, and resurrection. The feeling to accept what is. This is a very esoteric and powerful placement, like moving through emotional karma with grace. Accepting desire as a teacher. Gate 30 is emotional gate of desire, intensity, and longing. It brings the emotional fuel to seek out meaningful experience. It doesn't guarantee fulfillment. Instead, it lights a fire that seeks resolution through emotional experience. It's karmic in nature. We often don't know why we want what we want, but we feel it deeply. Line 3, in this 30th gate, is about resignation, the acceptance of what is, the romantic realist. We also have to remember that third lines are experiential, trial and error by nature. This line meets failure, resistance, and chaos, and learns through it. In gate 30, this energy often desires something emotionally, chases it, hits limits, and then learns to surrender. The core theme here is emotional resilience through acceptance, not giving up, but learning when to let go of control over outcome. Pluto represents transformation, death and rebirth, truth, and the deep forces of the unconscious. Wherever Pluto sits, there's evolutionary pressure to grow beyond the ego and align with cosmic law. When Pluto is exalted here in the third line of gate 30, its qualities are uplifted, powerful, and functioning at their highest frequency. Here, the transformational process is conscious, alchemical, and full of wisdom. Now, keynoting what we know. Putting together all the keywords and themes, it sounds like this. I have desires and feelings in a realistic way. I seek out meaningful experience. I am longing for a lot of things, but I accept if that is not possible to reach. I want something with all my heart, and I can let it go if it's not meant for me. I don't give up, but I know when to let go of control over the outcome. Pluto helps me in my process of emotional purification and renewal. It teaches that life moves in cycles, and I have to go through the process of regeneration. I understand how past patterns can create present longings. I am the Plutonian, realistic, romantic person, the emotional surrender. Unpacking the theme of Pluto, we get the specific meaning of this placement in this line. The first part of the theme, the awareness and manifestation of the law of regeneration. This is deep karmic wisdom, the knowledge that life moves in cycles. There is death, loss, disappointment, and rebirth. With this exalted Pluto, the individual carries a profound inner awareness that emotional pain isn't the end. It's a gateway to transformation. They can guide others through emotional purification and renewal. The second part of the theme, the laws of karma, reincarnation, and resurrection. These themes are symbolic, but also literal for some. The soul returns, learns, clears debts, and rebirths itself. This person may have a natural understanding of emotional karma, how past patterns create present longings. There's a feeling of being on a mission to emotionally evolve, lifetime after lifetime. They may carry ancestral or collective emotional themes and be here to heal and transmute those cycles. The third piece of the theme, the feeling to accept what is. This is key. At the heart of Gate 30.3 with exalted Pluto is emotional surrender. The person may feel intense emotional longing and also the wisdom to not fight the fate. They carry the emotional strength to face heartbreak, disappointment, or loss and not close down. This is where the fire of desire becomes a sacred offering, not just a personal craving. If you have Gate 30.3 with Pluto exalted in your chart, you may experience powerful emotional cycles, longing, collapse, rebirth, and grow from each. Be a natural emotional alchemist, turning pain into wisdom. Feel deeply connected to themes of soul growth, karma, destiny, and evolution. Be able to hold intense emotional states with grace, teaching others how to accept, endure, and rise again. You have karmic insight. You can see why emotional desires repeat and how to move through them. If resisted or unconscious, Pluto is about emotional fatalism. This is my karma. I'll never escape this feeling. Avoidance of desire, fearing emotional intensity because of past pain. Addiction to resurrection, constantly burning everything down in order to feel reborn, being emotionally chaotic. Projecting karma, blaming fate or the past instead of facing the present moment. Gate 30.3. With Pluto exalted is like the phoenix of the emotional body. It is burned by longing, tempered by truth, and reborn through surrender. You are here to teach others that desire is not weakness. It's a sacred path to soul growth. Jupiter, in detriment, the tendency by its very knowledge to encourage or avoid despair, the positive or negative feelings which come with acceptance of what is. This placement touches on emotional depth, spiritual perspective, and the fragile space between hope and hopelessness. Gate 30 is about the emotional wave, fluctuating between yearning and surrender, hope and despair. Line 3, resignation, the acceptance of what is, like all third lines in human design, are about trial, error, adaptation, and learning through experience. Gate 30.3 is the point where the emotional fire realizes it can't control outcome and must learn emotional surrender. The line is called resignation, not in a hopeless way, but as peace with what is. Jupiter represents growth, optimism, philosophy, spiritual beliefs, and meaning. It expands whatever it touches, for better or worse. It is also associated with moral codes, justice, and higher learning. When in detriment, Jupiter's natural expansiveness becomes excessive, misplaced, or ungrounded. It can lead to blind faith, false optimism, or a swing into pessimism when things don't go as expected. It may know a lot, but that knowledge can lead to either hope or despair, depending on how it's held. The line theme is encouraging or avoiding despair. The tendency by its very knowledge to encourage or avoid despair. This refers to emotional wisdom gained from repeated experience, the kind of emotional truth that comes not from theory, but from living it. Jupiter here knows that life doesn't always give us what we want. That knowledge can either lead to despair, why bother wanting anything at all, or it can lead to acceptance. Desire is part of life's dance even when it hurts. In this line, Jupiter in detriment might struggle to hold on to optimism when desires aren't fulfilled. It can be prone to emotional collapse, losing perspective in the face of disappointment. Or it might cling to idealism, refusing to accept hard truths, leading to disillusionment later. The second theme to break down: the positive or negative feelings which come with acceptance of what is. This part reflects the emotional wave. When aligned, the person accepts life with grace. This too shall pass. When misaligned, they may feel like giving up. What's the point? So the acceptance of what is brings either emotional peace, emotional maturity, spiritual strength, or emotional defeat, cynicism, or retreat from life. If you have gate 30.3 with Jupiter in detriment, you may struggle emotionally when things don't go your way, especially if you had high hopes. Carry a deep, perhaps subconscious spiritual sadness, a sense of karmic weight or emotional futility. Be torn between wisdom and pessimism. Knowing too much about how things can fail may lead to hesitation or apathy. Or you may eventually become a deeply compassionate guide, able to help others navigate disappointment and find meaning beyond outcome. When you attune to the high expression of this placement, it is about emotional teacher. You help others find meaning even in longing, loss, or failure. Wisdom through surrender. You model how to accept life's complexity without losing heart. Grounded hope. You hold a realistic but inspired outlook that doesn't collapse in the face of hardship. Karmic peace. You understand the cycles of desire and surrender as part of the soul's evolution. If unintegrated, then this placement brings some challenges, such as emotional resignation with no renewal, like giving up before trying, bitterness toward life, feeling betrayed by unmet desires or unfair karmic burdens, withdrawing from life, a desire to avoid engaging with emotions entirely, over-identifying with suffering, making despair part of your identity. Summary: Jupiter in detriment. Struggles with meaning and hope when life doesn't deliver. There is a tendency toward despair or emotional avoidance. With Jupiter in this third line is about holding emotional acceptance with either optimism or defeat. Gate 30.3, with Jupiter in detriment, teaches that desire without attachment is spiritual fire. But desire with attachment can feel like emotional ruin. Your growth lies in learning that longing is not a flaw. It's a gateway to grace if you can accept what is and love it anyway. The explanations of Ra Uru Hu regarding this line will be more than clear. I quote, "When you come to the third line, you come to a deeply spiritual line. It is an extraordinary line. I am always amazed that it is there in this gate. The nature of this line and what this line will represent later in our process, in our development, will become more significant. The line is called resignation. It says, the acceptance of what is, Pluto exalted, the awareness and manifestation of the law of regeneration, the laws of karma, reincarnation, and resurrection. Jupiter in detriment, the tendency by its very knowledge to encourage or avoid despair. Think about the nature of this line. This is an adaptation line. It is the end of the first trigram. It can be inherently irresponsible. We know it is about bonds made and broken. We know that the wave here is allegiance and rejection. What is in that wave and what happens to these people over time is that, out of a recognition, after all, this is the channel of recognition, comes an acceptance of the nature of the wave, the acceptance of what it is to be emotional. It does not happen right away. It takes them time. After all, there is no awareness here until they do recognize that what is. I am up, I am up, I am down, I am down. I feel that the world is beautiful. I feel that the world is shit. This is just what is, and out of that recognition comes the acceptance of what it is to be emotional. These people grasp the nature of the emotions and can be in despair about that because out of that recognition does not come awareness. Out of this recognition can come emotional clarity. The highest level that this stream can attain is emotional clarity, to recognize that what is. It is an irresponsibility to the process of the feeling. If the feeling cannot result in change or progress, it is not about becoming obsessed with the feeling. It is about surrendering to, this is what is. At the high end of the wave, it will be acceptable, and at the low end of the wave, it is full of pain, but nonetheless, this is the nature of the motor. In the Book of Letters, the feeling to accept what is, not the awareness, the feeling to accept what is. This comes only from experience. This is one of the deepest things that we recognize about the nature of the emotional environment. We all know this. People in our lives and people that we love, we watch them as they grow older, and as emotional people grow older, generally they mellow. They mellow with experience. They have made a fool out of themselves so many times. They have been hurt so many times. They watched others get hurt so many times that slowly they begin to recognize the nature of what the wave is. The greatest gift that can come to anyone with a defined emotional system is the recognition that the wave is there and there is nothing one can do about it, other than just let it be what it is. This is the beauty that lies in this line. The positive or negative feelings that come with acceptance. You don't have to like it. This business about having to like your life, you don't have to like it. You have to accept it. It is not about liking. You can love people that you don't like. We all know that. You can like people you don't love. You don't have to like your life. You can love it and not like it, but you will never iove it unless you can accept it. Everybody thinks that they are here to improve their lives. They are not. Your life does not need any improving. It is exactly what it is supposed to be and nothing else. For the emotional being to accept the nature of the wave is to survive life. Otherwise, they can't. Otherwise, they are always in pain, always full of hope, and projecting that onto others. This is a very beautiful hexagram. People who have this are very interested in reincarnation. They have this as a theme. This line is very mystical. Once you accept it, then you see the whole pattern, you see the wheel, you see the spiral, end of quote. Gate 30, line 4, burnout. An unrealistic pace that begs misfortune. The energy of Gate 30 is about yearning to feel something deeply, to make experience meaningful, even at a cost. Gate 30 connects to Gate 41, the starting codon of human design, forming the channel of recognition, the pressure to begin an emotional journey based on desire. Line 4, burnout. An unrealistic pace that begs misfortune. This line delivers a powerful emotional warning. Go too fast, push too hard, and you'll burn the whole system down. This line feels desire intensely and can push itself too hard emotionally or energetically, in pursuit of an experience. It may overextend, chasing the emotional high, only to crash or feel emotionally drained. The potential for burnout comes from misalignment, acting on emotional impulse without clarity or pacing. The key meaning is burnout. The fire consumes itself. This is emotional exhaustion, the moment when desire, drive, or longing becomes unsustainable. The emotional intensity of gate 30 is like fire. Line 4 is what happens when you feed it too much, too fast, without pause, patience, or reflection. The emotional system overheats. The nervous system fries. You become drained, disillusioned, or physically unwell. Burnout here isn't just physical, it's emotional, spiritual, existential. Then, the first theme is an unrealistic pace, trying to rush emotional timing. This is the core issue of this line, ignoring the emotional wave and trying to force for feelings, experiences, or the outcomes before their time. Emotional clarity in human design requires time. Gate 30 has big emotional hunger, but line 4 tries to skip the waiting process and jump straight to fulfillment. It's like trying to fast forward a love story, a healing journey, or a passion project, and then crashing when reality can't keep up. Desire says go, but wisdom says wait. The second theme begs misfortune, the consequences of emotional impatience. When this line isn't honored, the outcomes can feel dramatic. Emotional relationships collapse under pressure. Projects pursued out of intense passion fall apart. Physical sickness or fatigue shows up as the body's cry for slowness. Emotional confusion, instability, or chaos ensues. This is the lesson through fire. When you push your emotional energy beyond its sustainable rhythm, the universe steps in and says, stop. Healthy expression of line 4. When you embrace pacing, this line becomes beautifully wise. You learn how to honor your emotional process rather than rush it. You recognize desire as a wave, not a sprint. You teach others how to hold intensity with care. You build things that last, not just things that feel good in the moment. Line 4 becomes the person who says, yes, I want this, but not at the cost of my soul. In time, you gain spiritual wisdom, understanding that the fire of desire must be fed slowly, carefully, or it burns down the house. This line teaches us the sacred value of emotional pacing, patience, and surrender to the right timing. If you have this line, watch for emotional overcommitting, saying yes too fast, chasing too hard. Respect your emotional energy limits. Give space between impulse and action. Learn to ride the emotional wave, not crash through it. Trust that not everything needs to happen now. Timing is everything. Now, let's look at how Gate 30.4 plays out in different chart placements, such as conscious, unconscious, or in a defined channel. 1. When Gate 30.4 is conscious, on the black side, the personality. This line is part of your self-image, how you see yourself, and how others might experience you emotionally. You might experience awareness of your own tendency to push too far, too fast, especially when emotionally invested. A desire to make something happen emotionally, even if you're not fully ready or clear. A kind of emotional urgency or pressure to live big that leads to exhaustion if not managed. In a healthy expression of this conscious line, you take advantage of your gifts, such as you become a teacher or a guide around emotional pacing, helping others avoid burnout through your experience. You may inspire others with your emotional intensity, but also warn them against unsustainable speeds. You're learning to recognize the cost of chasing desire and to wait for clarity. When you are not aligned, this energy is distorted, and you encounter some pitfalls, such as you might blame yourself when you burn out, rather than seeing it as part of your learning process. Others may see you as emotionally intense or overwhelming if you're moving too fast. 2. When gate 30.4 is unconscious, on the red side of design aspect, this is something you may not be aware of, but others definitely feel in your energy. It's in your body and behaviors more than your thoughts. You might experience not understanding why you get emotionally exhausted after certain experiences or relationships. A subtle pattern of jumping into things too quickly, especially if emotionally charged. Attracting people who want emotional intensity, but leaving you feeling wiped out. If you are aligned, the high expression of this conscious line is about your gifts, such as you have a natural sense of emotional pacing that can be refined through experience. People may see you as someone who gives everything. There's a generosity of spirit here. Your body is teaching you emotional wisdom through the contrast of fire and fatigue. Pay attention to the low vibe you might transmit when you are not aligned. Others might perceive you as unreliable emotionally, burns bright, then disappears. You might push yourself unknowingly and not understand why you keep burning out. 3. When part of a defined channel, 4130, the channel of recognition, the beginning of the experiential process in human design, emotional pressure, gate 41, is connected to emotional desire, gate 30. When gate 30.4 is part of a defined 4130, the intensity of emotional desire is turned up, and now there's energy backing it up. It's no longer just a gate, it's a channel. What this changes. Now you're under consistent pressure to begin emotional experiences, whether you're ready or not. Line 4, in this context, can overcommit to desires too fast, especially if there's social or relational pressure. There's a higher risk of burnout, but also a greater potential for emotional maturity through trial and error. Emotional wave as layer added to line figure 4 means that the emotional wave is already rising and crashing in this channel. Line 4 adds a social or interpersonal component. You might feel obligated to go along with something to maintain connection, even if it burns you out. When aligned, you become a master of emotional boundaries, knowing when to engage and when to rest. You can model emotional sustainability in a world addicted to intensity. As a final reflection, gate 30.4 is a firewalker. You're here to experience desire, but with the wisdom to know when to step away from the flame before it consumes you. You don't need to deny your passions. You just need to honor your limits and ride the emotional wave until clarity arrives. Pluto exalted, a compulsive and hyperactive nature that carries all the earmarks of burnout, but doesn't necessarily arrive at it. A positive outcome is often assisted through analysis, highly energized feelings that may lead to emotional collapse. This line contains emotional fire on overdrive, but also the potential for incredible transformation if its intensity is integrated consciously. Gate 30 is emotional fuel for evolution, but when not respected, it can lead to emotional burnout. Line 4 themes are always relational and externalizing, the bridge between the internal and the social world. The current line 4, burnout, comes with the theme, an unrealistic pace that begs misfortune. This line carries a restless, emotional intensity that pushes itself too hard. There's a drive to fulfill desires quickly, often without pacing or integration. It's not just emotional yearning, it's emotional urgency, a need that feels like survival. The pressure to engage emotionally, socially, or creatively can become overwhelming, and eventually, the body or spirit may crash. But now, let's look at what happens when Pluto is exalted here. Pluto exalted is the power of transformational depth. Pluto brings radical transformation, karmic lessons, evolutionary intensity, and truth at all costs. Where Pluto is exalted, we see the high road of its energy, especially over time. It brings depth psychology, awareness of unconscious patterns, and the potential to regenerate what seems lost or burned out. So in Gate 30.4, Pluto exalts the potential to not just survive emotional burnout, but to learn from it, to become wiser through it, and even to avoid it through self-knowledge. The theme is a compulsive and hyperactive nature that carries all the earmarks of burnout, but doesn't necessarily arrive at it. You may have an intensely driven emotional energy, a kind of emotional urgency that wants resolution, recognition, connection. This energy may be relentless, yet with Pluto exalted, you have the potential to witness your compulsions, not just be consumed by them. You ride the edge of burnout, functioning while deeply stressed, but you may never fully collapse because you begin to understand your limits through experience. Pluto brings transformational awareness. I've hit this wall before. How can I respond differently this time? Another piece of the theme is a positive outcome is often assisted through analysis. This is huge. You are being invited to step back, reflect, and examine your emotional patterns. You may benefit greatly from journaling your feelings, talking with a therapist or guide, tracking your emotional cycles, studying your own emotional history like a karmic map. Pluto gives you the power to metabolize emotional energy rather than just express or suppress it. The third part of Plutonian theme, highly energized feelings that may lead to emotional collapse. There's emotional volatility here, when the longing becomes too strong, when desires aren't met, or when you're emotionally overcommitted. This placement has a nuclear level intensity. You may feel like you're holding a fire that could explode or implode. But again, the exaltation of Pluto is the gift of conscious emotional rebirth, when emotional breakdowns become initiations, and burnout becomes the signal for transformation, not defeat. If you have Gate 30.4 with Pluto exalted, you may feel driven by deep, unconscious emotional urges that feel overwhelming at times. Be naturally compulsive in chasing emotional intensity in relationships, creativity, purpose. Have a pattern of pushing past your emotional limits, but later developing the wisdom to pace yourself. Experience emotional collapses as transformative thresholds where a new you is born. Learn to use emotional awareness plus psychological insight to regulate and direct your desire energy more skillfully. With Pluto here, you can hit emotional limits and bounce back wiser and stronger. When you don't embrace Plutonian influence, you can push through emotional limits and ignore burnout warnings. You may crash hard emotionally, unable to regulate internal intensity. It can be about overdriven longing, constantly chasing unfulfilled desires without pause or reflection. Ask yourself, do you avoid stillness? Do you use constant motion to escape inner emotional truth? Gate 30.4. With Pluto exalted is like a volcanic force of emotional transformation. You may burn hot, live fast emotionally, and push limits, but your gift is to witness yourself in the fire and to emerge from the edge of collapse with greater wisdom and power. Pluto here doesn't remove the emotional pressure, it invites you to alchemize it. Jupiter in detriment, uncontrollable expansion with the inevitable bursting of the bubble, uncontrollable feelings and accompanying emotional outbursts. This placement speaks to emotional excess, the overexpansion of feelings, and the inevitable release when those feelings can no longer be contained. When Jupiter is in detriment, it's not functioning in its most aligned way. Jupiter is usually about growth, expansion, optimism, and the search for meaning. But in detriment, these themes become exaggerated or misdirected. Jupiter's energy can become overblown or wild, causing more harm than good. It may create unrealistic expectations, over-optimism, or a misinterpretation of the truth. In this placement, there is a tendency to expand beyond what is manageable, which leads to an eventual collapse or bursting. Let's see the theme: uncontrollable expansion with the inevitable bursting of the bubble. Expansion here refers to emotional intensity that gets out of hand. There's a tendency to push feelings to extremes, chasing after more or trying to amplify the emotional experience. The bubble bursting is the inevitable outcome when the energy overflows and can no longer be contained. It's like trying to hold too much air in a balloon. It will eventually pop. Emotional outbursts may follow as feelings overflow in a dramatic release of pent-up energy. In this case, Jupiter in detriment intensifies this expansion process, making it harder to regulate or gauge the limits of emotional intensity. The second part of the theme, uncontrollable feelings and accompanying emotional outbursts. This speaks about the emotional consequences. Jupiter's expansive energy magnifies the emotional intensity of gate 30, leading to outbursts or emotional explosions. You might feel a great rush of emotion, only to later feel overwhelmed or guilty for letting it spill over. There's a sense of no brakes. Once the emotional intensity builds, it rushes forward, and it can be difficult to put the genie back in the bottle. Jupiter's tendency here is to make things bigger than they need to be. An emotional situation might escalate out of proportion because the desire to feel more is overblown. If you have gate 30.4 with Jupiter in detriment, you may experience overwhelming emotional waves that are difficult to contain, a lack of emotional restraint where feelings overflow into outbursts that you later regret, unrealistic expectations of emotional experiences, leading to disappointment or frustration when the reality doesn't match up, a compulsion to overexpress, trying to get attention or validation through emotional intensity, burnout or emotional exhaustion because the energy of your feelings isn't being managed properly. High expression of this placement teaches you to recognize emotional patterns before they get out of hand, maintaining a balance. You channel your desire for experience into meaningful emotional growth without going overboard. In a low vibration of behavior, you may constantly push your emotional limits, leading to burnout and emotional collapse. Feelings come out in dramatic outbursts that feel uncontrollable, often creating chaos. You might build up emotional situations in your mind that become unmanageable or impossible to fulfill. You can blow things out of proportion emotionally, leading to unnecessary conflict or distress. Gate 30.4, with Jupiter in detriment, has the power of great emotional expansion, but without the ability to moderate it, this can lead to dramatic outbursts or a collapse of overextended desires. The key challenge here is to become aware of your emotional extremes and learn to balance your feelings so they don't overwhelm you or lead to burnout. It's about recognizing the tipping point, knowing when to slow down and not let your emotional need for more get carried away. Let's hear the message of Ra in line companion. The fourth line, the beginning of the upper trigram and the process of externalization. These people make other people sick. They make others emotionally unstable. They are less likely to show evidence of this themselves, but they can have deep impact on the people around them. The line is called burnout, an unrealistic pace that begs misfortune. These are experience junkies. These are people who must have experience. They can only develop their feelings through experience, and they must share their feelings with someone else. Pluto exalted, a compulsive and hyperactive nature that carries all the earmarks of burnout but doesn't necessarily arrive at it. A positive outcome is often assisted through analysis. This is a classic situation. You have a parent that has the 30.4, and they have a child with an undefined emotional system. The child becomes hyperactive, and it gets sent into analysis. The 30.4 really impacts on other human beings much more than on themselves. Jupiter in detriment, uncontrollable expansion with the inevitable bursting of the bubble. In this hexagram, you have 3 different situations in which Jupiter is in the detriment. This emotional field is enormously expansive, highly energized feelings that may lead to emotional collapse. I have the 41.3, so my resonance is not to the 4th line. A friend of mine has the 4th line. Whenever that person visits me, it is so uncomfortable for me because I notice that after they have been there for 10 or 15 minutes, I get up and go to work. I start doing something, an experience. I suddenly have the feeling that I have to do this. These people can be really obsessive about living out their feeling in that sense, but it is what they do to others that is so powerful. Remember that by the time you get to the fourth line, you get to a line that by its very nature is there to externalize a single track. And it is a collective circuit, and it is about sharing, and the very next step is to penetrate somebody. When you see this, particularly in couples or parent-child relationships, this is something to talk about with them because this can always lead to a great deal of problems and misunderstanding about the nature of it. The person with the undefined system who takes that in becomes deeply vulnerable to that because they become twice as explosive. End of quote. Gate 30, line 5, irony, recognition and dedication to transitory goals. Gate 30, recap, clinging fire with the theme of desire, deep emotional yearning, craving for profound experiences. The energy of this gate puts emotional pressure on you to feel something meaningful, even if it's intense, even if it hurts. Gate 30 wants to experience life through the fire of emotion. Each line offers a different relationship to that fire. This fifth line is a beautifully complex line, full of emotional intelligence and cosmic humor. It blends emotional depth with existential awareness. It sees the joke, the paradox, and still plays the game. The theme is about that you recognizing that desires are fleeting, yet you still choose to invest in them with both sincerity and emotional detachment. The wisdom comes when you can be deeply engaged, but also see the joke. You pursue desire knowing it might not last, yet you're all in. The tone of this line corresponds to mature emotional intelligence, a touch of humor, existential depth, artistic resonance. Irony is about the emotional paradox. This line holds the emotional wisdom of seeing the absurdity of chasing desires, while still feeling deeply compelled to do so. You know that many of your desires are temporary, fleeting, or illusory, and yet you still feel them. You still care. You still move toward them. There's an ironic detachment, a kind of emotional double vision. I know this probably won't last, but I'm in it anyway. This line teaches that emotional richness doesn't require permanence. Transience is not a flaw, it's the nature of life. Recognition and dedication equals to a conscious pursuit. Unlike earlier lines, which may be swept away by feelings or unsure how to hold them, line 5 is self-aware. It recognizes the nature of its desires. They come and go, rise and fall, burn and fade. And still, it chooses to commit to the experience. This is a line of devotion, not delusion. It doesn't romanticize outcomes. It honors the process. This line holds the wisdom of loving without attachment, desiring without control, and pursuing without needing permanence. The second part of the theme, to transitory goals, is about knowing it won't last, but it still matters. This is the core irony. You pour your emotional energy into things that you know are impermanent. A relationship that may not last. A dream that might fade. A creative high that passes. And yet, the experience itself is the purpose. Even if the wave crashes, I want to ride it. That's the soul of Gate 35. Not about clinging for permanence, but being fully alive in the now. When distorted, this line might become cynical or emotionally numb, thinking, what's the point? Overcommit to things it knows are fleeting, then feel burned or disillusioned. Struggle with emotional disappointment when desires dissolve. Feel emotionally stuck between caring too much and not wanting to care at all. When this line is embodied, it gives a gifted expression like, for example, this line becomes emotionally wise, compassionate, and grounded. It models how to be fully present in transient moments, knows how to let go without regret, becomes a teacher of non-attachment through presence. It finds meaning in the moment, rather than needing something to last forever. You might have experienced a spiritual insight, a specific one for this line. The fire of desire isn't meant to be permanent. It's meant to light up your soul for a time and then release you into the next wave. If you have this line, you may naturally sense that nothing lasts forever, and that gives you both depth and detachment. Your emotional intelligence is strong. You feel deeply, but you don't cling. You might move from one emotional experience to the next with a certain grace and inner knowing. Your challenge is to stay open to the experience without needing it to define you. Now, let's look at how Gate 30.5 plays out in different chart placements, such as conscious, unconscious, or in a defined channel. This gives the line real-world texture and helps you feel how it lives in someone's life, not just as a concept, but as an emotional frequency with nuance. 1. When Gate 30.5 is conscious, on the black side, the personality. This means you're aware of this irony in how you feel, act, and connect emotionally. It's part of your personality expression, how you see life, and how others experience you. You might experience a deep emotional sensitivity paired with a kind of internal wink. You know you're chasing something that might fade, but you do it with heart. The ability to be fully present in experiences without needing them to last forever. People might feel emotionally safe around you because of that. An emotional pragmatism that's rare. You feel deeply, but you're not naive. A tendency to fall in love with the moment, music, art, people, ideas, and honor it even if it's fleeting. Watch for feeling jaded or cynical when others take emotions too seriously, trying to play it cool to avoid vulnerability, even though you feel a lot inside. Others misreading your emotional clarity as disinterest. Your gift is about bringing emotional presence without emotional attachment. You know, the kind of person who lives the poetry of life and can let it go when the page turns. 2. When Gate 30.5 is unconscious on the red side of your design aspect. Here, the line operates beneath your awareness. Others see and feel this ironic wisdom in you, but you might not recognize it yourself. You might experience a natural tendency to get emotionally involved with things that don't last without understanding why. An ability to stay present in emotional highs and lows without clinging, but not realizing that's unusual or powerful. Others coming to you for emotional clarity, or seeing you as emotionally chill or grounded, even if you feel otherwise. Watch for feeling confused about why people project emotional maturity onto you. Getting frustrated when you don't get closure because you sense impermanence but can't fully explain it. Taking on emotionally intense situations without realizing your role and anchoring them. Your aura carries emotional acceptance, and this is your unconscious gift. Even if you're unaware of it, people feel emotionally seen around you because you unconsciously honor impermanence. 3. When Gate 30.5 is part of a defined channel, especially 4130, when Gate 30 is connected to Gate 41, you have the full channel of recognition, one of the most emotionally creative and experiential energies in the human design system. 41 is the pressure to dream. 30 is the desire to feel that dream. Together, an emotional engine that fuels new experiences. Now, line 5 plays a very specific role. You feel emotionally driven to start experiences, but line 5 says, I know this won't last forever, and I'm okay with that. You bring an ability to initiate emotional journeys that are rich, moving, creative, and knowingly finite. You're the one who can hold both the desire to begin something, a relationship, a passion, a risk, and the wisdom that it may only be here to teach, not to stay. In relationships, you're romantic but realistic. You love the moment, not the promise. You attract people with your emotional elegance, but also your freedom of heart. People may come to you for intense emotional experiences, not always realizing they're meant to be temporary. In creative work, you might channel transience into art, writing, performance, healing. You are emotionally tuned to the rise and fall of beauty, and you feel the art in it. As an overview, gate 30.5 in any position is the soul that loves with its eyes open. It feels desire deeply but isn't fooled by it. It shows us that transience doesn't cheapen beauty, it creates it. Jupiter exalted, the strength derived from knowledge and experience that 2 steps forward and 1 step back is still 1 step forward. Each new feeling brings back an old feeling before progress can take place. This is a theme that involves emotional growth, progress, and integration through experience and knowledge, specifically focused on the idea that emotional evolution is often nonlinear and involves revisiting past feelings in order to move forward. Any line 5 is about the heretic and universalization. Line 5 has a unique quality in the hexagram system. It is often referred to as the line of the heretic, not in a negative sense, but in the sense of someone who has a universal approach to a specific theme. It's about bringing knowledge, ideas, and experiences to others in a way that can be widely accepted or understood. The 5th line brings a practical, hands-on wisdom to the gate it is in, and here, it can bring emotional insight based on personal experience. In gate 30, line 5 is where emotional experiences are processed into wisdom, and the knowledge gained from this experience can be passed on to others. Jupiter, exalted here, is the expansive teacher. When Jupiter is exalted in a chart, it represents the higher expression of Jupiter's energy. Jupiter brings growth, optimism, and expansion in its exalted state. It has the potential to amplify wisdom and spiritual insight. It's about seeing the bigger picture, understanding the law of cause and effect, and gaining knowledge through life's experiences. In this context, Jupiter exalted in gate 35 is all about transforming emotional experiences into universal lessons. It's not just about gaining personal growth, it's about sharing that knowledge with others and understanding the cyclical nature of emotional experience. The first part of the Jupiterian theme, the strength derived from knowledge and experience that 2 steps forward and 1 step back is still 1 step forward. Growth through experience. This line reflects the journey of emotional evolution. The theme suggests that growth isn't always linear. You may take 2 steps forward, but also experience setbacks or challenges, 1 step back. However, even with the setbacks, you're still moving forward emotionally, even if it doesn't feel like it at first. Jupiter exalted helps you to see this progress as part of a bigger, more optimistic picture. Even the setbacks are part of the growth process. Emotional cycles. This line suggests that every new emotional experience, a new feeling, can bring up old emotional patterns or past feelings. In order for real progress to occur, you might need to revisit or reintegrate past emotional wounds or patterns, understanding that emotional growth often involves cycles of release and renewal. The emotions you encounter may feel familiar because they connect with something older, but this is part of the process of transformation. Jupiter, exalted here, is optimistic, emphasizing that each emotional experience, even when it feels like you're revisiting old feelings or encountering emotional regressions, is part of your progress. You gain strength and resilience by accepting that emotions don't always follow a simple path forward. Emotional wisdom often comes through experiencing, processing, and integrating different emotional layers, learning from setbacks, and recognizing that growth can involve revisiting old feelings. But in doing so, you evolve. It's about trusting the process of emotional maturation, even if it feels like stagnation or backsliding in the moment. If you have gate 30.5 with Jupiter exalted, you may find that emotional growth is a journey of many cycles, where you move forward and occasionally revisit past emotions or patterns before you can finally move forward again. You have the wisdom to understand that setbacks are part of the emotional process, and each step, whether forward or backward, is still part of the greater emotional evolution. You may be someone who, through your emotional experiences, becomes a teacher or guide to others, helping them understand the cyclical nature of emotional growth and offering wisdom based on your own journey. You might feel an internal drive to move forward emotionally, but also have a deep wisdom that accepts the nonlinear nature of this growth. When you take the most of this placement, you embrace the cyclical nature of emotional growth and see setbacks as part of the process. You gain deep emotional insights that you can share with others, becoming a wise guide. You understand that old feelings must be revisited for true emotional progress to occur, meaning you understand emotional integration and your growth process. For the lower expression of this placement, you might feel stuck, like you're repeating old emotional cycles without ever moving forward. You may fall into patterns of feeling like you've made no progress because of the emotional relapses. You might get frustrated with the process, wanting quick results, and missing the deeper lessons from emotional setbacks. You may let your emotions become overwhelming when old feelings resurface, unable to see them as part of your growth. Gate 30.5. With Jupiter exalted offers you emotional growth through experience and knowledge, encouraging you to embrace the nonlinear nature of emotional progress. Even when setbacks occur, they are simply part of the greater journey of emotional evolution, and every experience, old or new, adds to your wisdom. This placement supports emotional resilience, spiritual insight, and the ability to integrate lessons from past emotional experiences in order to make steady progress. Pluto, in detriment. The anger engendered by the irony, frustration with its limitations, and a desire to eliminate the entire process. Frustration and anger with the old feelings brought into the emotional awareness with each new experience. This theme touches on the anger, frustration, and the desire for transformation that arise when the process of emotional evolution feels circular, limiting, or unresolved. Gate 30 is a striving energy, pushing for clarity and emotional release, but the process often isn't smooth or linear. There can be emotional turbulence along the way, especially when old feelings are revisited. Line 5, Line of the Heretic, universalization, is associated with a universal approach to a particular theme. It often brings wisdom, practical insight, and a broad perspective, but also has a certain irony because the solutions provided may not always be accepted by everyone. In the case of Gate 30, Line 5 brings practical emotional wisdom, but with the understanding that the wisdom isn't always easy to integrate or accepted by others. The challenge here is that while you may have emotional insight, the frustration comes when old emotional patterns seem to resurface with every new experience, leading to a feeling of emotional redundancy or irony. Pluto represents transformation, deep emotional truth, and regeneration. However, when Pluto is in detriment, in a sign opposite its natural home, its transformative powers are often misaligned or blocked. Pluto in detriment can lead to repressed emotions, emotional stagnation, or even self-sabotage. The desire for transformation can feel frustrated or limited because there's an inability to fully access or process the deep emotional truths Pluto seeks to uncover. There's often a feeling of powerlessness in the face of emotional challenges, and Pluto's intense desire for change can become a source of anger and frustration when the process doesn't go as expected. The Plutonian theme, the anger engendered by the irony, frustration with its limitations, and a desire to eliminate the entire process. Let's take it piece by piece. Anger from the irony. The irony here comes from the frustration of emotional limitations. Even though there's a deep desire for transformation and emotional clarity, you keep encountering the same emotional cycles, and with each new emotional experience, you're forced to face old feelings. There's irony in the fact that you've already worked through certain emotions or experiences, but they keep returning, preventing forward movement and feeling like you're stuck in the same emotional loop. This creates anger, not just from external sources but from within, as you feel frustrated with the seeming lack of progress. Frustration with limitations. You may feel blocked by your emotional history, as though emotional progress is being hindered by your past experiences or unresolved emotions. The desire to eliminate the entire emotional process stems from this frustration. You might long for a quick release from your emotional patterns, wanting to get past the cycles and just move forward without revisiting old feelings. Desire to eliminate the process. There is a strong push to rid yourself of emotional stagnation. The idea of transforming your emotions can feel overwhelming and exhausting, so there may be a desire to eliminate the very process of emotional transformation itself, either out of frustration or an underlying fear that the cycles will never end. Old feelings resurfacing. Every new emotional experience seems to bring back old feelings. This can feel like a constant replay of past emotional themes, making it feel as if no progress is being made. The frustration comes from having to revisit the same emotions, and with Pluto in detriment, the process of confronting these feelings might seem more painful and longer lasting than it needs to be. Pluto's tendency to dig deep can feel exhausting, like you're continuously uncovering emotions you've already worked through. If you have gate 30.5 with Pluto in detriment, you might experience emotional frustration and anger because it feels like old feelings keep resurfacing, preventing you from moving forward emotionally. A desire to escape the emotional process or eliminate it altogether because it feels overwhelming and never-ending. A strong urge for transformation, but a lack of access to the deeper emotional truths that could facilitate that change, leading to emotional stagnation. A tendency to cycle through old emotional patterns, often feeling like you are repeating the same lessons, which generates a sense of irony and disappointment. A desire to transcend your emotional patterns, but an inability to let go of them fully because they are deeply ingrained in your emotional awareness. The high potential of this placement can teach you to dive into your emotions, seeing the deep layers of meaning and insight they offer, even when they seem to repeat. You have the ability to transform anger and frustration into emotional insight and personal growth. Even when you feel like you've gone 2 steps forward and 1 step back, you recognize that this is still part of the emotional evolution. You embrace the cyclical nature of emotional growth and stop fighting the process, allowing transformation to unfold naturally. When you use Plutonian energy in a distorted manner, you might become stuck in emotional frustration, believing that nothing will change and that your emotional progress is blocked. You may feel trapped in old emotional patterns without understanding why they persist, leading to a sense of powerlessness. You might try to avoid confronting deep emotional truths out of a fear of being overwhelmed by the intensity of those feelings. Gate 30.5. With Pluto in detriment brings emotional frustration because the process of transformation feels blocked or never ending. Even though you have a deep desire to transcend your emotional patterns, it may feel like old feelings keep resurfacing, preventing progress and generating anger and frustration. Embrace the cyclical nature of emotional growth and transformation, understanding that emotional progress isn't linear, but instead is a process of revisiting old feelings in order to release them and move forward, can bring deeper emotional healing and insight. As you know, I always go to the words of Rauruhu, in-line companion. We all need to see if understood the message of the gates properly. So, I quote his words about this 5th line of Gate 30. When you get to 5th line, you get to the universalization. The line is called irony. It says, recognition and dedication to transitory goals. Jupiter exalted. The strength derived from knowledge and experience that 2 steps forward and 1 step back is still 1 step forward. Understand what happens to these people. This is all about sex, food, and experience. They have an interesting love affair, and they leave their lover because they find something more interesting. They are a 30th gate. They have a yearning and a desire, and they see a new lover, and they go ahead and have a new love affair. It turns out to be terrific. 6 months later, they go shopping and go into a cafe, and there is their old lover. There is a feeling inside of them that says, maybe we should try it again and see if that was really what I thought it was when I left. What happens to them is that the whole experiential process is about gaining experience and not repeating it because it is not worthwhile. But there are many situations in which you cannot know that until you have had the experience a few times. They will go through that process where they will take their step ahead and will have their new experience, but there is always a holding on to the feeling from before. That can pull them back to that feeling. They can often feel very funny in a situation where suddenly they thought that they were through with something, and then they have to come all the way back and deal with it again. The whole thing about that line is that everything is the same, except how you handle it. Pluto and detriment, the anger engendered by the irony, frustration with its limitations, and a desire to eliminate the entire process. I will get rid of both of them because something is wrong. Why should I go back? Shouldn't I be satisfied with where I am? They have to learn that this is the only way in which they will come to grips with the experiential pathway. They are double checkers with their feelings. They go back and check it out one more time, and then they walk away and say, yes, I was right. I got that on my way, but now I'll get rid of that feeling, and now I can go on to the next experience. In the Book of Letters, each new feeling brings back an old feeling before progress can take place. That new feeling brings back an old feeling, which lingers in there, and you think, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. Frustration and anger with the old feelings brought into the emotional awareness with each new experience. Why is it still there with me? Does that mean that I am not in the right experience for me now? This can be a real torment. These people get torn in their feelings. They have the new experience that they are participating in, and the old feeling that is still lingering there, and the two of them fight with each other in the emotional system. Depending on their wave, that struggle can either be full of hope or full of pain. Eventually, they get rid of that old feeling because the new one is okay. In the low end of the wave, oh my God, this new feeling must have been a trick. I'd better check out the old feeling again. These are, by the way, the most seductive of these people because they simply do have the experience. End of quote. Gate 30, line 6, enforcement. The discipline to maintain right action. Gate 30. Overview and recap. Clinging fire. The gate of feelings. We already know that is about desire, emotional intensity, longing for meaningful experience. Gate 30. Burns with desire, the kind that wants to feel alive through meaningful, often intense experiences. It can ache, yearn, and dream with powerful emotional momentum. Now, each line in a gate tells a story, and line 6 is the final chapter, the highest expression, but also the most removed and potentially wise. The core meaning is the discipline, meaning mastery over impulse. By line 6, we've moved through the emotional yearning, lines 1, 2, and 3. The pitfalls of burnout and irony, lines 4 and 5. Now, we reach a level of mature control. This isn't repression, it's emotional mastery. Line 6 has learned to ride the emotional wave without being tossed around by it. It brings restraint, presence, and accountability to its desires. It says, just because I feel something doesn't mean I have to act on it recklessly. This is the wisdom of someone who's been through the emotional fire and come out disciplined, conscious, and clear. To maintain right action, integrity in the face of desire. This is about acting in alignment, even when your feelings or cravings tell you otherwise. Right action refers to moral or energetic alignment, authenticity, and responsible conduct, especially in emotionally charged situations. This line enforces boundaries, emotional, energetic, behavioral, for the sake of long-term growth rather than short-term gratification. It doesn't mean you're emotionless. It means you honor your emotions without letting them rule you. You feel the fire, but you choose your steps with care. When not integrated, this line can become rigid or overly controlled emotionally. Suppress desire out of fear of doing the wrong thing. Judge others who are more emotionally impulsive. Feel like it has to carry the burden of emotional responsibility for everyone. In this state, enforcement becomes emotional suppression or moral policing. When aligned and empowered, this line embodies emotional leadership, acts as a model of integrity under pressure, holds discipline not as control, but as a form of freedom, shows others how to live with deep desire without being consumed by it, understands how to channel emotional intensity into creative or spiritual mastery. It becomes the emotional version of a Zen master, deeply feeling but never lost in the fire. True power is not acting on every desire. It's knowing which ones are in alignment with your soul. This is the spiritual wisdom of sixth line. If you have this line, you may feel like you're always being called to hold it together emotionally. This is a sign of your maturity, not a burden. You might struggle with others who are emotionally chaotic or impulsive. They can feel like tests of your own boundaries. Your gift is holding the line between passion and purpose, knowing that real fire, when directed with intention, transforms everything. Now, let's look at how Gate 30.6 plays out in different chart placements, such as conscious, unconscious, or in a defined channel. This gives the line real-world texture and helps you feel how it lives in someone's life, not just as a concept, but as an emotional frequency with nuance. 1. Conscious placement is on the personality side, black color in your chart, right side numbers. When Gate 30.6 is conscious, you are aware of this discipline and emotional control. It shows up in how you think, make decisions, and present yourself to others. What this might feel like. You know that you're here to hold emotional integrity and act with maturity. You may feel responsible for being the calm center when others are overwhelmed. You might feel conflicted between the emotional desire that burns within you and the discipline to act only when it's right. Watch for feeling like you must always hold it together for others. Frustration with people who are emotionally reckless. Being too hard on yourself when you slip emotionally. Take advantage of your gift, which lies in your emotional wisdom that is available for conscious growth. You can teach, guide, sumumtuis, or model emotional maturity, and people may naturally look to you for it. 2. Unconscious placement on the design side. Red color in your chart, left side numbers. When Gate 30.6 is unconscious, you don't see yourself this way, but others do. It's in your body, your aura, your instinctive behaviors. What this might feel like. You're not always aware of how emotionally contained and composed you seem to others. You may naturally enforce emotional boundaries without effort, and not understand why some people find that calming or intimidating. People may project onto you as someone who can handle it all, even when you're struggling internally. Watch for not giving yourself space to feel or break down because you're supposed to be strong. Missing the value of your own emotional guidance system. Other people trying to push past your emotional walls without understanding them. Embrace your gift, your emotional discipline, which is embodied. It gives you a strong emotional backbone that can guide your life, even when you don't realize it. 3. The last section, we see how this line behaves being part of a defined channel, 4130. Gate 30 becomes even more powerful when it's part of the full 4130 channel, the channel of recognition, which brings emotional pressure to start new experiences. This channel is also the initiator of the Human Design Experiential Stream. It's where the story of life begins. What changes when Gate 30.6 is part of a full channel? A. You're under emotional pressure to begin something new. There's a constant hum of desire, a push to manifest the dream from Gate 41 into reality through Gate 30. This can amplify the emotional fire of Gate 30, and Line 6 must learn how to manage that fire consciously. B. You may feel destined to live a rich, meaningful life, but only if you act with emotional correctness. You can't force timing, even if you feel the fire burning. You're here to align desire with right action, not just chase every dream. C. This becomes your emotional strategy. You're not here to start things impulsively. You're here to wait out the wave, feel into the emotional truth, and then enforce right timing and clarity. Your emotional discipline defines the health of your experiences. If we try to summarize, Gate 30.6 in your chart means you're here to transform desire into aligned action, not through suppression, but through soulful discernment. You hold the rare emotional gift of being present in passion without being consumed by it, a guiding light for others navigating their own emotional fires. Mars exalted, the assertiveness to purge the inferior while accepting to lead the weak, the strength to eliminate negative feelings. This theme brings together assertiveness, leadership, emotional purging, and the ability to transcend negative emotions. Let's unpack this in detail. Gate 30 is related to the idea of being drawn to something, whether that is an emotional experience, a goal, or a need for clarity. But it can be overwhelming and difficult to manage, as it represents the urge to process emotions deeply in the quest for emotional clarity. Line 6 is the role model, is about transcendence. The sixth line is known for being a transcendent or role model line in the hexagram system. It represents someone who has gained wisdom through their experiences and has risen above the challenges of the earlier lines. This line is about seeing the bigger picture, transcending emotional struggles, and offering leadership or guidance. Line 6 in Gate 30 has the capacity to rise above emotional turbulence. It brings clarity and higher wisdom regarding emotional experiences and is able to transcend the overwhelming feelings that may be present in the earlier stages of emotional awareness. We keynote, and it sounds like this. The current sixth line is enforcement as a role model, having the discipline to maintain right action. For this role model, Mars brings action, a strong drive to eliminate what's holding you back emotionally. Mars exalted is about the warrior's drive. Mars represents assertiveness, action, and energy. When Mars is exalted, it brings focused strength and courage. Mars in exaltation is able to direct its energy effectively with purpose and decisiveness, making it a powerful force for change. In the context of Gate 30, Mars exalted brings a clear, assertive drive to purge or eliminate negative emotional patterns. It offers the strength to face and eliminate emotional baggage that no longer serves you, and it has the energy to push through difficult emotional processes. Mars brings action to Gate 30, helping to move forward emotionally by taking control and clearing away old emotional attachments that limit growth. The theme is the assertiveness to purge the inferior while accepting to lead the weak, the strength to eliminate negative feelings. The first part, assertiveness to purge the inferior. With Mars exalted, there is a strong drive to eliminate what's holding you back emotionally. The inferior refers to negative emotions, limiting beliefs, and emotional baggage that no longer serve you. You may have a powerful urge to clear away what feels outdated or toxic within your emotional world. This involves assertively confronting your emotions, understanding what no longer serves you, and using your energy to eliminate or purge it from your awareness. Second part, leading the weak. There is also a leadership aspect to this line. As you purge negative emotions, you might also find yourself in the position of guiding others who are struggling or feeling weak emotionally. You may offer strength and guidance to those who need it, especially if they're stuck in the emotional patterns that you've already transcended. This leadership is not about dominating others, but about providing emotional clarity and strength to help them move past their own emotional limitations. The third part of the theme, strength to eliminate negative feelings. With Mars exalted, there's the strength and assertiveness to confront your emotional struggles head on. You don't shy away from facing your negative feelings, but instead actively work to eliminate them. This requires courage and resolve to face difficult emotions, but Mars in exaltation provides the energy to do this in a focused, directed way. Instead of letting emotions overwhelm you, you use your assertiveness to clear the path and move forward emotionally. If you have Gate 30.6 with Mars exalted, you may experience a strong urge to purge or eliminate emotional patterns that you find limiting or negative. You have the assertiveness to face emotional struggles directly and work toward eliminating them. Leadership and guidance come naturally to you, especially when it comes to offering emotional clarity and strength to others who might be feeling emotionally weak or stuck. You feel a drive to transcend your emotional difficulties and to clear away what no longer serves you. There is a sense of powerful transformation available to you as you work to release old emotional attachments. A high level of emotional resilience. You may feel that you have the ability to withstand emotional turbulence, purge negative feelings, and emerge stronger. When you are connected to the high expression of this placement, you have the assertiveness to face and eliminate negative emotions, working with them in a direct and focused way. You naturally lead others through emotional challenges, offering guidance and clarity. You know how to eliminate emotional baggage and clear emotional blockages that no longer serve you. You rise above emotional turbulence and are able to transcend negative feelings, becoming emotionally stronger. When this energy is distorted, you might become overly forceful in your emotional purging, attempting to eliminate feelings without truly processing them, leading to repression or emotional burnout. You may become impatient with those who are struggling emotionally, finding it hard to accept weakness in others or in yourself. You could try to eliminate emotions too quickly, without allowing yourself or others the space to properly process them. You might develop a rigid approach to emotional experiences, believing that negative emotions must be eliminated at all costs, which could prevent deeper emotional understanding. Gate 30.6, with Mars exalted, brings assertiveness and emotional strength. It offers the clarity and drive to face negative emotions directly, purging them and transcending old emotional patterns. You have the ability to lead others through their emotional challenges and offer guidance based on your own emotional resilience. The key to fully integrating this energy is recognizing that while it's powerful to purge negative emotions, it's equally important to allow for the processing and understanding of emotions, not just their elimination. Moon in detriment, an inherent peacefulness that all too often will abide the presence of inferior forces, a lack of strength in eliminating negative feelings. This theme involves emotional passivity, a lack of assertiveness, and a tendency to abide negative emotions without enough strength to eliminate them. Let's unpack the key components. Moon in detriment is about the emotional subtlety. The moon represents emotional life, instincts, and the unconscious. It governs the ebb and flow of our feelings, as well as our ability to connect emotionally with ourselves and others. When the moon is in detriment, it is not in its natural home, the sign of Cancer, and therefore struggles to express its full emotional potential. In this case, moon in detriment can bring emotional instability, difficulty in processing feelings, or a lack of emotional clarity. There is often a passivity in how emotions are experienced, where instead of actively engaging with or processing emotions, there's a tendency to abide in them, allowing them to linger without transformation. The moon in detriment can also indicate that emotions are not fully integrated or acted upon, leading to a sense of emotional passivity. For gate 30, the sixth line, the enforcing role model, can signify the ability to transcend emotional challenges, rising above emotional turbulence to offer a more detached or higher perspective. However, if this line is not well integrated, it can lead to a detached emotional state that struggles to actively engage with emotional material, causing issues with clearing or transforming negative feelings. Now the theme is an inherent peacefulness that all too often will abide the presence of inferior forces, a lack of strength in eliminating negative feelings. The first part of the theme, inherent peacefulness, the sixth line of gate 30, brings an inherent peacefulness, which can be very beneficial in transcending emotional struggles. You may naturally have a sense of calm or equanimity that helps you maintain a sense of emotional stability. However, in the case of moon in detriment, this peacefulness may be more about avoidance or passivity rather than true emotional resolution. There can be a tendency to accept or abide negative emotions without actively working through them. Rather than facing or eliminating difficult feelings, there's an emotional tolerance or compliance, leading to emotional stagnation. The second part, abiding the presence of inferior forces. This refers to the tendency to tolerate negative or inferior emotional forces rather than addressing them. Instead of purging toxic feelings, you may allow them to linger or remain in your emotional world, creating a sense of emotional passivity or avoidance. You may avoid conflict or the active elimination of negative feelings because of your peacefulness or desire for harmony. But this can also lead to emotional suppression or bottling up feelings that need attention. The third part, lack of strength in eliminating negative feelings. The moon in detriment. In the sixth line, struggles with eliminating negative feelings. This energy is often about subtlety or a passive approach to emotions, which may not have the strength or assertiveness to truly clear away emotional baggage. You may lack the emotional fortitude to actively confront and purge negative feelings, and instead, those feelings may persist or cycle back repeatedly. There is a lack of engagement with the emotional material that is needed to transform it. This could manifest as holding onto old emotions or being too compromising emotionally, choosing peace at the expense of emotional health. If you have gate 30.6 with the moon in detriment, you may experience a strong peacefulness in your emotional life, but one that can sometimes lead to emotional avoidance. You may find it difficult to eliminate negative feelings because of your tendency to abide them rather than actively engage with them. You might feel emotionally passive, letting feelings linger or build up without finding the strength to clear them, which can lead to emotional stagnation. A tendency to tolerate negative emotional states for the sake of peace or harmony, but this can also create a suppressive environment where unresolved feelings continue to affect your emotional state. The lack of assertiveness in dealing with feelings can result in a sense of being stuck emotionally, unable to fully transcend or release the negative emotional baggage. If you embrace the moon's energy, you are emotionally detached. You are able to transcend emotional turmoil and gain a higher perspective on your feelings, creating emotional balance. Instead of avoiding negative feelings, you embrace the peaceful resolution of emotions through awareness and understanding. You become aware of your emotional states and guide yourself through them without suppressing or ignoring them. You achieve a sense of emotional harmony that allows for healing and transformation rather than emotional stagnation. When distorted, you may tend to avoid dealing with negative emotions, letting them linger instead of confronting or eliminating them. Your passivity in dealing with feelings may prevent you from taking action to clear emotional baggage or resolve emotional issues. You might suppress difficult emotions for the sake of peace, causing them to resurface in a more intense form later. Negative feelings may remain in your emotional field, causing a sense of emotional stagnation and making it difficult to progress emotionally. Gate 30.6, with the moon in detriment, highlights the peaceful nature that can sometimes lead to emotional passivity or avoidance. While the peacefulness of the sixth line can bring clarity and higher perspective, when coupled with the moon in detriment, it can lead to a lack of emotional assertiveness. There is a tendency to allow negative feelings to remain, rather than actively purging or transforming them. The challenge here is to actively engage with your emotions, rather than passively tolerating them. Emotional growth comes from facing and clearing negative feelings, not from avoiding or ignoring them. We don't skip the moment when we listen what Ra Uru Hu said about this line. I quote, "We come to the roof of the house, the line of transition. Remember the mirrors in design because they are very funny. The 18.6 is Buddhahood. The 30.6 is not where I work on what has been spoilt, but it is the spoilt one. In the 30.6, we find the emotionally spoilt one. They only want the best experiences. They only want to have the thrill of the emotional life. This is what is so important to them. It is called enforcement, the discipline to maintain right action. Mars exalted, the assertiveness to purge the inferior while accepting to lead the weak, the strength to eliminate negative feelings. They don't want to have negative feelings. They are looking for the feel-good in life. They hope that somebody will bring it to them. Because of that, these are some of the cleverest people in knowing exactly who to yearn for. They are very good at this. They are good at looking exactly for that energy that is going to give them that kind of life. The same is true for the 18.6, finding someone who will spoil them. This is one of their gifts. The 30.6 is somebody who needs to be spoiled emotionally. Moon in detriment, an inherent peacefulness that all too often will abide the presence of inferior forces. Now, think about this. Both of these lines in the Rave I Ching are talking about dealing with inferior forces, and remember that every hexagram, when you get to the roof, is looking to the next hexagram, in this case the 55.1, which is all about finding the spirit through cooperation with superior forces. The whole thing about the experiential path is that it seems like it can be full of all kinds of inferior forces. That is what you learn along the experiential path. What works? What does not work? Who can do it and who can't? Where the progress is and where it is not. The deepest thing the 30.6 is looking for is the real superior force. It is interested in people, and this is very unusual. This is a collective circuit, and it is not personal. It tends to be the kind of relationship that is simply for the experience itself, and yet the sixth line says, I know all that. I want more. I want the superior experience. I'll want a superior person in my life because I know that I have to share it with someone. End of quote. Now let's move on to a different perspective, to see how the 30th gate sustains or communicates the purpose of life through the crosses of incarnation that are established when the conscious sun is placed within the 30th gate, 30th hexagram, right angle cross of contagion, consisting of following gates: 30, 29, 14, 8. Innocent instruments of fate who can step in and unexpectedly change the fate of others through experience, discovery, and learning. Your cross carries the energy of desire and to experience what you desire. You are the one who tries new things out. It is your impulse. The rest of us benefit by the results of your experience for good or bad. You also carry the energy that wants to say yes. You may need to manage this tendency, or you will be overwhelmed by all your commitments. Juxtaposition. Cross of fates, consisting of following gates: 30, 29, 34, 20. Energetic and persevering charismatics at the mercy of the fates, who throw caution to the wind in their obsessive commitment to fulfill their desire. Potential mystical teachers. You carry the energy of drive and obsession. You are driven by a passion that resonates deeply within you and pushes you forward. You will work on your passion endlessly and continuously until you burn out. Burning out is the nature of the rhythm you bring in this life. There have been many great discoveries made by people with this cross. Is there burnout and then recovery? Left angle. Cross of industry, consisting of following gates 30, 29, 34, 20. A human dynamic, very busy working, building and bonding to satisfy the underlying motivation for humanity's progress, a burning desire to feel the emotional potential in each new experience. The energy of this cross is to be industrious. There is a strong desire to be busy and see that others are busy. The drive for this business is the goal to bring people together. Your belief is that doing this work, we will all come together. The trick for you is to make sure you follow your strategy and use your business in response instead of trying to outright manifest. I hope this material is helpful and supporting for the development of your human design knowledge. Please share if you enjoyed listening and subscribe if you want to be notified about any new posting of informative learning materials regarding human design. Thank you.